Wally, for your last meeting, would you do the honors, please?
Sure. I'd like to bring the Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee meeting to order. Please know we're being recorded and we are in webinar mode.
Yes, and I will bring the Concord School Committee meeting to order with the same notes.
And we'll do a roll call.
Yes, let's do a roll call to start. Go ahead.
Booth.
Aye.
Rainey.
Here.
Vote.
Right here.
Wilson.
Here.
Johnston, aye. Here. And Alexa.
Here.
It's everybody, right?
I think that's everybody we have. Yep.
Good.
So as we started to say, but now we'll say it officially now that the meeting is in order. For public comments, if you have a public comment, let's do the, actually, wait, can they raise their hand? Sorry.
I believe so.
If you raise your hand, there we go, yes, because someone has their hand raised. If you raise your hand, we will temporarily promote you to a panelist so that you can make a public comment. And then when you're commenting, if you could just give your name and address, that would be great. So I see one coming. Hello, Jennifer, welcome.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome, join us. If you could state your name and address, and then we'd love to hear your comment.
Jennifer Montbach, 45 Pine Street. I have a rising 8th grader at CMS and a rising senior at CC. Just a little birdie reminded me that this was Mr. Johnston's last meeting, and I was just calling on behalf of all of the Concord parents to thank you for your service and working so hard on our behalf for a very long time for very low pay. And we really appreciate everything you've done, especially through these last turbulent months or so as we've tried to get through the pandemic and figure out how to keep our kids sane and educated. So we just all wanted to thank you, Wally, and bravo.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thanks for coming on, Jen.
Yes.
Great to hear from community members. And yes, Wally has stayed with us even longer than his slated tenure, thanks to COVID.
That's where the white hair came from.
Any other public comments? You can raise your hand and we will promote you. I don't see any others.
We have, yes, we do.
Oh, whoops. Do we? Oh, wait then.
Looks like we have 3 queued up.
Oh, okay, good.
We've got Deb Green, Tim DeLutri, and Jim Bozak.
Great.
Okay.
Okay. I think they're coming through.
So I think Deb's audio is on now.
There we go. Deb, you're with us, although we can't see you. I know you might join us for a conversation.
I'm here.
There we are. Hi.
Yes. Hi, I'm here for a discussion of COVID testing, so I will thank you for having me, and I will mute myself until such time as you need comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, and the next one.
Tim DeLutri, perhaps? If we can promote Tim, and then Jim Bozak.
Jane is here.
Hi, Jane.
Hi.
Okay, are we promoting Tim to make a comment? There we go.
Sorry, it's not Tim DeLucre, it's Casey Atkins. I'm logged in as a colleague by accident. My apologies for the confusion. Just quickly, I wanted to thank Wally for his service on the school committee and for especially these last couple of months, staying long past your term. Thank you for everything you've done. It's much appreciated.
Thank you very much.
That's great. And Jim Bozak, are we bringing him on now? There we go.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Welcome,
Hi,
Jim.
Jim.
Afternoon, Jim Bozak, President of the Building Service Workers Union, representing them tonight. Thank you to the school committee, first of all. I haven't missed a meeting since March, and what I've heard is, I've sent emails to some of you saying how impressed I am. You always have the students and the staff safety priority. So I want to thank you, all of you, for that. Wally, I want to thank you for all your years of dedicated service. When I listen to you and you talk about issues, I always think of you as a person of common sense. You're a common sense guy, and you'll be missed. And I thank you on behalf of all of us employees. To Dr. Hunter, I can't imagine her job. She has done such a good work, and she has communicated everything from March right up to this point. Everything that's going on, the communication level has been extraordinary. So I thank you. I don't know how you've done it, but you've done a great job. So thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
And finally, to Jared Stanton, who I've worked with every week since March, and maybe sometimes twice a week, to get to this point we are at. We have developed a relationship between the union and management that is mutual respect, and it really helps during this time when you have a union and operations side working together for all of us. So I thank Jared and congratulate him. We've met, and I would take back our meeting to all the custodial supervisors in all the schools, so everybody was on the same page. Everybody's on the same page with cleaning protocols, training. So if we didn't do that, I can't imagine where we'd be today. So a lot of congratulations to Jared Stanton. And finally, I say this, we have dedicated custodians working in all our schools. We've worked hard this summer, reconfiguring classrooms, cafeterias. If you've been to the middle school, the cafeterias look a lot different, and they look a lot different because of safety, social distancing and everything else. So, I've been here for 35 years. I've never experienced any of this, but I think we're in a good place. I know there's people coming back with a lot of anxiety, and the only thing I can promise them is that we're prepared. We have a good group of people that are prepared to clean and sanitize these schools daily. We have protocols to follow, and it's just every precaution we will take to make sure that the students and staff are safe. And that's all I can promise. We're all in this together, and we need to support each other. So I thank you all.
Thank you, Jim.
Wow. Thank you, Jim. Talk about things. That's a vote of confidence right there. That is so good to hear.
Thank you, Jim. Great way to start a meeting.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's the end of the meeting.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, we'll adjourn now.
If there's
Everything's
no
all set.
objections, we'll adjourn.
I just I know this is public comment and we don't usually respond, but I would just, as a person who works in a school, I know how hard the building staff is working. Overtime, doing one thing and having to undo it and do another. So we appreciate all of our building workers so much. I mean, it would be totally impossible to do this without them.
So true.
Here.
Here.
And
Thank you,
Heather, I
Jim.
think there's other people who wanted to say some words to Wally who are waiting for the recognitions
Join
later on.
till the end.
I just want to be sure they know we're still doing that as well.
Yeah.
It's great. We'll bookend the meeting on
We'll do it at the end.
good
and
thoughts for Wally.
We'll heckle Wally as much as we can. I do see a raised hand. It's someone Wally might know. Jane Hotchkiss is raising a hand.
Best behavior, Wally.
Jane, join us.
I wouldn't recognize him. I just wanted to add my voice as a public member, which is an odd thing for me to do, especially in Zoom. But Wally, wow, you came on the school committee as a hostage. And I know that my daughters both benefited from a exceptional space at CCHS and at throughout the CPS system that was only enhanced by the leadership you have shown consistently as a school committee member. And I think that you have modeled an approach that has benefited everyone, even those that would not necessarily recognize it. I can honestly say I stand in awe of what you've accomplished. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jane. This is a fun way to start off. Do we have any more? We will do more of this at the end. I don't see any more raised hands. Am I missing them? Does anybody else see any?
Well, fun, yes, and celebratory, yes, but also a keen sense of impending loss. But we know you're going to be moving on to other things on our behalf, Wally. So that I think gratifies us a bit, and we'll mitigate the loss, but we'll feel your loss here. There's no question about that. Jane has it right. You've modeled leadership on this committee in a way that's going to benefit us for a long time to come. So that's one of the many debts of gratitude that I have for you, and I'm sure others share that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, shall we go to reading in the minutes?
All right, let's. Almost as exciting.
So we have one joint session minute of July 27, 20. Can I have a motion to accept those?
So moved.
Is that for both committees?
Sorry, thank you for both committees. Thank you.
Second for both.
Thank you. Any comments, changes, requests for?
I thought they were very complete and very accurate, completely accurate.
So all in favor of the motion? Oh, I'll do a roll call, sorry. Wilson,
Aye for a region.
Bout,
Aye for both.
Rainey,
Aye for both.
Booth,
Aye for both.
Johnston, aye for both. And then we have a long list of executive session minutes. February 25th, these are all 2020. February 25th, March 10th, April 16th, April 28th, May 8th, and May 19th. Those are all joint executive session minutes. Can I have a motion to accept those?
So moved for both.
Second for both.
And do we have any comments on those? Seeing none. Wilson,
Aye for region.
Bout,
Aye for both.
Rainey,
Aye for both.
Booth,
Aye for both.
Johnston, aye for both. Correspondence, we had 39 emails to the committee about the MIAA's release of their plan for sports and the Dole County League's plan. We'll be talking about those later. The vast majority of those were in support of their plans and encouraging us to follow. One was opposed. And we had one email about communication and requesting additional communication to parents. And the last one was about masks and the importance of ensuring everyone uses them. Heather, did you have any other correspondence today?
Yes, definitely. I'm going to take a little more time on this, just go into it for a second. We got a letter that everybody here has seen, and I'm sure read, from the CTA on behalf of CMS teachers. And so I want to do a quick high level of it. They decided not to make a statement, but send something to us, which was really to document some of the challenges and concerns related to reopening. Understandably, there are plenty of them, as we all have them. I know to make sure their voices continue to be documented, I think, as part of the discussion, not only at the task force and administrative planning level where they've been involved, but also in our discussions, since we haven't had teachers directly here. Part of it was pointing out that there are certainly many teachers who would still prefer remote if given the choice. And I think we know going into this all that people certainly have different preferences and different comfort levels. And at the same time, we've seen incredibly the staff come together and be determined to make this work. They also gave us a list of issues that are really to keep on the radar, to again, be documented, of what teachers at the middle school are thinking about and want to make sure that we're thinking about. They were basically in the categories of safety, pedagogical or teaching model, and equity. None of them are surprises. In fact, all are items that have either been addressed or have been considered and looked at and will continue to be monitored. So I'd say overall the letter represents a request that we maintain a vigilant focus on safety considerations, which I think we can all say we certainly agree with that, as well as a similarly vigilant focus on the teaching model and how that's working. That's something new, obviously. And this is an important point. I'm going to briefly add a personal thought here that's not in their letter. Just that, as we all know, because I want to really acknowledge what they're saying here. We've essentially redefined teaching over the course of a few months. And we're now looking to our teachers to step into the spotlight to launch it. That's a big ask of anyone. And for a group who really, let's say, tend to have very high expectations of themselves, I'm sure this produces a pretty high degree of anxiety in a lot of people, understandably so. So I think it's just important for us all to remember that this is all new. You know, by definition, even with the incredible preparation and well thought out plan we have, it can't be perfect. There's no way it could be. There will be logistics and practicalities that we'll need to work out as we go, and we'll get into it and we'll review and adjust our plans as we go, as we see what needs tweaking. And that's okay. That's the way it should happen. We'll do it together and improve as we go. And there will be regular check-ins between teachers and administrators. We've set that up already as we launch and execute it all. So I just want to say I really appreciate the CTA sharing this letter with us so that we can really make sure that we're all keeping the same high priority issues on the radar. And I think we have a great start at that already. We have a structure for continuing to communicate. So this letter was very valuable and helpful to all of us. I hope everybody's read it in detail and may a couple of times even. I just want to say too, just kind of on a personal note to this, I want to make sure that we acknowledge that for every teacher out there, everyone in the whole district, most of them, whether they're in person or remote, this is incredibly difficult. It's such a new, different situation. It's not one we ever would have chosen. But in these dire circumstances, our teachers are really stepping up to do what's best for kids, despite the challenges and uncertainty and the uncertainty that every district is facing. They're really coming together and they're there for us. So for that, I just want to make sure that we're all commenting how grateful we are. So that's my comment on it, but thank you to the CTA for sharing this, and really it becomes a good, helpful document that we can use to continue to keep all of the same thoughts on the radar as we move forward into this. So just a little comment on that one.
Thank you, Heather.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well said.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I think that was it.
So anybody have any liaison reports? I don't have a report. I don't know if you do either. Barring that, anybody been to any meetings they want to let us know about?
Just very briefly, whether it's correspondence or liaison, I'm not quite sure. We got a request from the Mass Association of School Committees for some information about policies relating to COVID. Can we assume the chairs will determine which of the two of you might respond, or you'll delegate it? When we get those requests, the rest of us, I think, let that go. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah, are those specific?
It's one that just came in today, but I
There's
think
one
I mean,
by
came
way
in
of,
today that's basically survey based.
yeah, but by way of protocol, I want everybody to understand that when one of these comes our way, we don't all answer it. We leave it to the two chairs to either take it on or delegate it to somebody.
Yes.
Okay,
Definitely.
thank you.
In fact, speaking of delegating, Court, since you're the king of policy these days, would you like to do that for us?
Okay, it'll be easy enough, this one. Yeah, they're looking for number one, mask policy, number two, dress code policy,
Yeah.
specifically around this fall. What are we doing? Is it specific to this fall? So I'll be happy to, and I'll copy the chairs.
That'd be terrific if you don't mind. Thank you so much.
So I guess that's how it's done when you chair, huh?
Exactly. Hey, you suggested I delegate. I just did what you asked.
No, I should have known better.
Okay, any other liaison reports or otherwise? Okay. Then I think we get to get into the good stuff.
yeah.
Lori, do you want to start to take us through our various reopening topics? We have athletics on first. Is that still the order we're going to take these in?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'll just open with some context here. I am absolutely happy to turn this over. Aaron Junkus is here, our high school athletic director. Mike Mastrullo's here as principal of the high school. So we thought we'd talk high school athletics first and go through where the MIAA and our league is at. Aaron and I have both been at meetings with the other superintendents and ADs, and Mike stayed very close to this. So we're bringing forward the league recommendations and supportive of these recommendations. So I think it's probably worth opening with that as our mindset coming in. So I'll let Aaron go through the details. And then following that, we also have thoughts coming from the middle school, which will not have the same competitive season. That's an agreement among the MIAA districts, but they've hoped for some sports activities. So Sarah Bullwinkle, who serves as their athletic director, and Justin Cameron are both here as well. But why don't we start with the high school? Aaron's here and ready to present, and we can take it from there.
So Aaron, you're muted. There you go.
Oh.
Still muted.
Aaron, we still can't hear you. It doesn't look like you're muted, but no sound coming through.
Aaron, sometimes if you just actually hit the volume button after unmuting, it works. Sometimes it still does, keeps you quiet. No, I mean, I am an expert lip reader, but I don't know if everyone else is, so.
Isn't that a necessary requirement of parenthood, Mike?
Yeah, sometimes though, it's a skill you actually don't want.
Right.
How
There
about
you
now?
go now.
There we go.
That wasn't the way I wanted to start off here.
Yeah.
But you got our attention, Aaron. Hi.
Hang on, I can't hear everybody else now.
Uh-oh.
Aaron, if you just hit the up arrow by the mute button, you'll have your selection of audio sources and mic sources.
No, can't hear you, Aaron. I will say in my experience, the headphones and Zoom are finicky.
We could do the middle school first and give Aaron a chance to work through the audio issues. Do you want to switch order?
Yeah, that makes sense. Justin
Why don't
and
we do that?
Sarah, are you
Then
guys-
Aaron can keep working on it and we'll,
Maybe log out and log in.
yeah, sometimes that works.
Help.
So let's switch over to the middle school and Aaron can play with that. So Sarah and Justin obviously magically arrived there while we were talking. Sarah, I know you brought some slides as well. So if you want to, you should be able to screen share. If not, Chris will do that for you.
I can. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Oh, No, it's not what I meant to do. Pardon me. Let me get present. Okay. I was hoping to follow Aaron because he was going to say all the good stuff, but I'll do the best that I can. So I'm speaking on behalf of the coaches and several parents and students who've reached out to me, just sort of really longing for the opportunity to get back with their teammates and their coaches and have some sort of normalcy and stability in their after school lives. Knowing that we're not going to be able to compete against other towns, which was sad, but we've sort of dealt with that grief and are moving on to hopefully providing what for all intents and purposes is an intramural program where students will be able to participate in the kinds of sports they have on an interscholastic level just within themselves in the Concord Middle School community. I'm never a fan of when people read to you from a slide, so I'll give you just a minute to look at the philosophy, and then I'll start with the orange and move on to the proposal itself. I don't know if you can, oops. Yeah. So just at the end of that, it says, in these unprecedented times, we accept that the middle school athletes will not be able to compete against schools from other towns, but we hope to offer the in-person programs that will allow students to be active, connected to their CMS peers, and experience a little sense of normalcy as they return to CMS this fall. So why is this not forwarding? Okay, so for boys and girls soccer, Dave Davidson and Elizabeth Stockwood are our coaches. They've been coaching both these teams for many years. And they're proposing that if we're allowed to move forward, any student who wants to participate in soccer would make the team. So in past years, when numbers of kids come out, they have to usually do cuts so that kids have equal playing time and it's safe. But this year, anyone who wants to show up will be able to. And what we're hoping to do is if more numbers than safety would allow, we'd get some assistants or people who used to run intramural programs to come and help out so that the spacing would still work out and students could participate safely. They propose that practices would be Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, since all students are remote on Wednesday. And we would begin on the 21st, which is basically in accordance with the MIAA guidelines. And students who are remote, so if you're in your cohort or your alphabet A through K and you aren't in school on Tuesday, but you want to and are able to get to the school to practice, they were saying they're happy to have both cohorts of kids show up. And we'll just keep an eye on, the numbers as everyone is, and we'll make adjustments if we need to. Just they wouldn't have transportation. Their parents would have to be able to get them there. So they would run their practices and they'd hope to run some intra-squad scrimmages to the extent that they can get their players to maintain social distance. We know soccer is in sort of that moderate risk category. So they would have to do the best that they can with 11, 12, 13-year-olds to sort of keep them from low contact. But they feel like they could manage that, and coaches and players would wear their mask on the sidelines. And unfortunately, if we can't hold the in-person sessions as proposed here, these sports would just have to be canceled for this season. So, sorry, why is this not forwarding? Oh, sorry. So field hockey is run by Brian Revell. It's pretty similar in format. He had some more specificity because he's been thinking about this and planning for this since March. Really eager to get going with the students. But he is proposing that he would hold the practices on Mondays and Tuesdays, and he's sort of mapped it all out, and he'd be able to keep his players 10 feet apart when they're doing their drills. And then on those Mondays and Tuesdays, and on Thursday and Friday, he'd hold scrimmages. And again, with all the same precautions that were in place with the soccer proposal, and the same invitation that students who are remote could attend, and wearing of masks, etc. The difference with field hockey is if we aren't able to hold the in-person sessions, Brian is still willing to offer some sort of a virtual coaching where he'd run like a training session through Zoom, and the students could just at their homes sort of get their Zoom camera out and practice in their front yards, which I know my daughter did in the spring, and it's not the same, but it was better than nothing, and it kept her active and connected and practicing her sport. For cross country, Debbie Harmon and Kim Sear are the coaches. We already have 2 coaches in place there because the numbers have always been so large in the cross country program. And because they take all students, always have taken students in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. So they would hold their practices Mondays, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. And the idea being you're building up to having an intra-squad meet every Friday. The idea being that students are racing against each other and really their own personal bests. And that's sort of the philosophy that cross-country program has always had. And like field hockey, if they can't hold in-person sessions, they will run Zoom virtual sessions in which they get everyone together and go through the stretching, they describe the workout, and then they send students off to run. So at least they have that opportunity to get some running in, and connect with their team. They were also mentioning that if the numbers get too large for distancing purposes, that if they have their cohorts just coming to the practices, those who aren't able to come could Zoom in for that initial warm-up stretch, hear what the running lesson of the day is, and then go off and run on their own at home. And I felt like I had to say in closing, just a word about our coaches. All of them are veteran teachers at Concord Middle School, so the kids will have connections or have made connections with them as their teachers, and they have decades of coaching among them. They've all been at Concord coaching for many years, and most of them coached even prior to their time in Concord. They're all, as they need to be, CPR certified, first aid certified, concussion training. They know what the MIAA and CDC and DESE guidelines are. But most importantly, if I leave you with nothing else, they just have this love for their students and a passion for their sports that I've had more emails from them about this is what we could do, this is what we could do. Just anything to get their kids in front of them and out on the fields and playing and laughing together again. So really, that's my very quick presentation. I think Erin will give you more of the details from the MIAA, which we of course would follow as well. But we're also a little bit different because we don't intend to participate against students from surrounding communities, just our CMS community. So are there any questions? I can stop screen share.
Heather, I think Mr. Cameron would like to add on to that.
Yeah,
great.
Thank you. Nice job, Sarah. Good to see you, Sarah. How was your summer?
Yeah, right, Justin.
Okay, so I would just love to validate what Sarah just said about the commitment of our coaches. You know, I think there are many times that we don't necessarily want to look back at some of the things this past spring in terms of, you know, how quickly we were forced to adapt and how quickly we were moving on the fly. The after-school program and how robust our after-school offerings are continued in the remote world, and the commitment that the teachers really put forward in the spring, I think demonstrates the commitment that they're looking for from all of you. There was a moment in our task force work this past summer where one of our students who served on the task force, we were doing a virtual site visit with another school, and the student asked the principal of that school, you know, what their after-school program in their sports might look like. And the principal actually was a little caught off guard and said, you know, quite honestly, we're not there. We have so much to plan, you know, to get students back. We're not even sure if we're going to be offering much in the way of after-school activities in the fall. And you could just see the energy of our student on our task force. The faculty and staff remain committed to our interscholastic, our intramural, and our after-school enrichment clubs and activities. And we're just looking for that support from all of you. It is, I would say, my #1 email from students in the last few weeks. So I just wanted to offer that as well. Thank you.
Sarah, I'm gratified. I'm pleased that a student could participate in cross-country remote only in the event that was necessary. So, and I certainly am in support of what you're trying to do. I want to respectfully challenge you here so we don't get challenged somewhere else in the following way. Go back to soccer. Are we having distancing protocols or low contact protocols?
I think that's a great question. And I think the answer is they're hoping to do a little bit of both. When they're planning on just practices, the drills would be distancing protocols, but in a scrimmage, they would be low contact. And they would follow the guidelines from the MIAA, and just the coaches would do the best that they can to sort of, because it's a scrimmage and not a competition with against another town, be able to sort of intervene if the contact got too close for too long. I don't know if that answer is satisfactory.
Yeah, it does. And I don't want to get too into the esoterics of soccer, but at your level, there's no slide tackle or anything like that, is there? Or is there? I don't know.
No, I think that, and that would certainly be something that coaches could say no to. They can establish a different set of rules. But I know my own children who play soccer have had to adjust some of the rules.
So that's something that's in play and you guys are going to
Certainly.
consider.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you to both of you. This is great information. Are there other questions from Concord committee members on this?
Yeah, so I just have a couple of questions. Sarah, thanks for doing this presentation and for all the work the coaches have put in and thought. I know it's a big, everything is so much harder now, even to have these local activities. The DCL guidelines are very specific about almost no spectators. So I hope our parents would be told to basically stay away so we don't have overcrowding at the fields. Or you'd have to devise something. And I just think it's probably better for, obviously kids need to be picked up. And my other question is there a late bus under our new world? There is.
So we are planning buses based on the decisions we make around these activities, but we're certainly able to run the late bus. We just were trying to get the order correct.
Right, and then just regarding that, the logistics of parent pickup, and I know having been a parent, in the old world, it was a little chaotic because, staff aren't there at 4:30 in the afternoon. So, dismissing a large group of kids, and now we want to be probably a little more organized about it. And so, I mean, you all are aware of all these things. I know I just think we have to be clear to parents that we just don't want them hanging out, not social distancing at the middle school.
Well, I think two things specifically. These would be more run like intramurals and practices, which parents don't attend because they're not competing against other schools. There's not a game that's being played. It's just their practice, and parents have never been at practices. So we'll continue to, I guess, reemphasize that. And the pickup, the coaches do stay with the kids until the last student is picked up.
Oh, yes.
So they'll be there to ensure that the distancing happens. But you're absolutely right. Those are times that we'll need to be aware of. The pickup can get a bit crazy, but coaches will be there to enforce the social distancing.
Yeah. And again, thanks so much for all this hard work.
Sure.
Here.
I have one question, actually, in terms of the when it's remote. I know you've talked about the kids who are remote can come in. But we also have obviously scenarios where we could end up all remote again, either day by day or long term, anything from COVID to, the heat index or something, whatever it may be. If we are remote for a day or a few days or a week, then what happens to sports activities?
Yeah, so I'm gonna grab that one because I think that's up at my level.
Yeah.
As of right now, I think if we're to the point where we're closed, I'm not going to allow sports because there's a really good reason we closed. And I think this is just contradictory to that. So who knows? You get into a situation, maybe there's something I haven't figured out yet, but that's my sense going into the school year.
Most likely. Okay, that's good.
And I think this might be a different question, but if we are in that full remote, the students wouldn't come to school to participate. But like in the spring, we had a really large number of students did the remote track, which just means the teachers all logged on from their homes, the students all logged on to Zoom, and they sort of did a group stretch and group run and those kinds of activities. So with field hockey and cross country, there would still be that opportunity, no sort of matter if we're all remote or for any period of time.
Great. And also just to confirm, I know you said masks on the sidelines. Does that mean during competition or scrimmages, will they not be wearing masks?
Yeah, MIAA wants them in masks all the time.
Yeah, I can give some input to that too, if like. The rules require that students wear their masks and they're during competition, during play, and they're allowed to remove them if they're 10 feet or more from another player. You know, basically if the action was happening at the other end of the field, for example, you know, you're allowed to take it off and get a break, but it's expected that the default is mask on at all times.
Okay. Even in cross country?
Even in cross country, unless there's 6 feet, yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we maintain that same thing at the middle school, correct? I assume. Yeah. Okay, great.
I want to thank everybody for all the work you've done to get this ready, and definitely going to be great for kids to have an opportunity to get out and exercise and play their sport of choice. So even though there's no competition, so thank you for putting all this effort in, both Justin and Sarah and others.
Very much so. And Lori, what do you need from us? And if it's something more official, maybe we should go through the high school stuff first. I don't know if we want to do this kind of big picture, or if you just need a nod of approval and we like this from us generally.
Yeah, that's generally the sense. The only school committees that have to formally approve sports is if the district is all remote. Okay. That actually has to be a school committee vote per DESI and as a result MIAA. So for us, it's really just making sure you feel well informed and that your comfort level supports getting our kids back on fields and active, and we will keep you posted as we make our way through that process. Great.
Then for Concord members, I guess either give us a little nod, I like this idea, or if not, then then raise your concerns now. Okay, great. I think we're looking good, Sarah.
Yeah, I'm certainly in support, and I would expect, Sarah, that you and Justin and Lori would be vigilant and keep us informed, because we're optimistic, but we're also hopeful, and so your monitoring is important to us because it'll keep everybody at the top of their game. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity tonight and for your support and approval.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
And Justin. Okay, so should we bump it back to the high school?
Yes, please. Aaron.
Resolved our technical difficulties, so thanks for your patience. I'm going to just share my screen here. I have the DCL proposal that I'd like to go through with the members. So we met with, as Lori mentioned, athletic directors met with many principals and superintendents in the DCL to talk about what our goals were for an athletic program this year. And we're really taking it in small chunks. So the MIAA has voted to split the athletic season into 4 seasons rather than the traditional 3 this year. And our focus right now is really on our fall athletes and giving those students an opportunity to participate. It's a much more modified structure than we've had in the past. But after hearing from so many kids and coaches in the spring who lost out on their season, we're definitely grateful for the opportunity to put a plan together through, what we think are safe limits and safe protocols in order to give our student athletes an opportunity to realize the benefits of sports this fall. As you know, the Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs has broken down the risk factors for sports into 3 categories: lower, moderate, and higher risk. The sports that we're proposing to offer at CCHS this fall are in the low and moderate risk categories as designated by the state. That would be golf, cross country, field hockey, and soccer. Volleyball was a sport that is approved by the MIAA that the DCL typically offers in the fall. We voted as a league to move that to the floating season or the fall 2 season, which happens in February. Just skipping ahead here a little bit, I can show you the dates here for the seasons. We made that decision based primarily on the uncertainty about indoor sports and the safety level there, and also because many schools in the district are using their gyms as cafeterias and classroom space, and we simply didn't have space in order to play volleyball this season. So here's an overview of what the additional seasons will look like. Again, as we all know, this is subject to change, but right now this is what is being proposed. Each of the seasons is designed to be condensed for the fall, and I expect for other seasons moving forward this year. There's not a planned state tournament, and we're trying to keep things locally just really tight so that you're participating against student athletes who live close to our homes, and hopefully, as a region, if our numbers continue to be really trending in the right direction for COVID cases, positive test cases, then we can keep everybody healthy and still being active. So all of our guidelines are based on what's been provided by the governor's office and the state. We're fortunate that in the DCL, we do not have any school districts that are in the red zone. Any school districts that go into the red area would not be able to continue participating for the rest of the season. We do have several school districts in the league that are fully remote this fall. Most of those, as of today, have gotten approval to participate. So right now we have a couple of schools that are pending approval because their school committees are going to meet early next week. But at this point, everybody in the league is participating. So that's a good first step for us here as we head into the next couple of weeks. Our fall sports start date is allowed by the MIA on September 18th. We voted as a league to start on the 21st since the 18th is Rosh Hashanah. So we're going to start on Monday the 21st. We're meeting all of the guidelines that are put forth by the EEA and by the MIAA and DESE, and working really hard with our coaches to make sure that we follow the sport-specific modifications and are doing so safely so that we can continue to have a season and hopefully make it through the end in November. Just some pros and cons of this proposal. Obviously, we're giving our student athletes the chance to engage in sports, which we feel is really helpful for their social and emotional well-being. We have 9th grade students who are coming into the high school for the first time in a really funky way with the hybrid model, and athletics for a lot of those kids is a way to build some friendships and build relationships with teachers and coaches. The proposal that we've put together as a league I think alleviates some of the transportation concerns that we had when we started talking about sports over the summer, with the fears that we'd have to limit the number of students on buses and that it would really drive up costs for districts. So I think that our proposal addresses that as well. And by moving a sport like volleyball to the fall 2 season or floating season, we're still providing an opportunity for, I guess, hope for those students that will be in a better position at that point, and we don't have to, cancel anything outright at this point. So, of course, as I mentioned, if a school or a district opts out of participating in sports, that's going to throw us a curveball scheduling wise, but we've got some preliminary plans to deal with that. Most of the districts are not running competitive middle school sports, as Sarah mentioned and presented on there. And as I said, we're not going to have any postseason tournaments that are run by the MIAA. However, our proposal does call for the opportunity to have a league championship. So we broke the league into 2 divisions, and we'll be in the large school division with Acton Boxborough, Cambridge Region Latin, Lincoln Sudbury, Westford Academy, and Newton South. As I mentioned, the sports that we're going to offer here in season 1 are boys and girls soccer, field hockey, boys golf, which for us is traditionally a co-ed team since we don't have a girls team in the spring, and both a boys and girls cross country team. Just want to share with you what the scheduling proposal looks like. We've basically designed the proposal so that, and these dates might vary, but basically what we're going to do is play each school in all sports in a given week. So in week 1, for example, if we play Acton Boxborough, we'll play every sport that we offer against Acton Boxborough that week. And similar to the independent schools that play on Wednesdays and Saturdays, we're going to use the Wednesday-Saturday model. We feel like the Saturdays offer us the opportunity to have kids driven by parents to games, so that eliminates the need for us to overload our buses. And then on Wednesdays, so Wednesdays will just be varsity competition. The Wednesdays for sub-varsity athletes, JVA and JVB, will be inter-squad scrimmages at our school sites. We will have an official come in, so we'll make it sort of, game-like as much as possible, so it's enjoyable for the kids and they can get the benefit of competition. But we won't have to worry about those students traveling and or being in contact with students from other districts. So it would just be the varsity field hockey and soccer teams that are participating on the Wednesday. Golf will also play twice per week within the division, but due to the availability of golf courses, those days will vary. It'll always be Monday through Friday, though we're never able to get golf courses on Saturday. And then on Saturdays, we'll play, again, same school, but the sub-varsity teams will also play. So on a Saturday versus AB, we may have 3 levels of field hockey playing at Concord Carlisle, along with boys and girls cross-country races. And then our boys and girls soccer teams may be over at Acton Boxborough playing in their games. So again, this allows us to have parents drive kids over to the games. We don't have to put kids on buses, and it also gives us the opportunity to really limit the exposure across towns, so that if there ever were to be a positive case, we'd have a really strong contact tracing plan in place. And we talked, Cynthia, you mentioned a little bit about attendance during the middle school. We are going to We are going to limit each student athlete to one family member per game. We're working out a process for that. I've got some additional game staff help, basically, which is going to help me monitor the sidelines. We'll do a check-in for parents, excuse me, that are attending to make sure that if, again, need be, we can do contact tracing, we can encourage social distancing. Really, we want to do it from the standpoint of, let's give our kids the opportunity to continue to play. These are some reminders about how important it is to follow the guidelines that are out. Games will look much different based on the modifications. As I mentioned, the biggest change will be that students are required to wear masks. I mean, it's really the default. If in a soccer game, a student is making a long run down the sideline, that's a sprint, he or she can take the mask off for that long run, but it's got to be right back on. And the rules actually dictate that if a mask is not being worn, it's a foul, a penalty. So the responsibility for administration of that falls on all of us, game officials, coaches, and game management staff like myself. And I think we're all really planning to work together to make sure that kids understand that this is a sacrifice that we're all making for the greater good, that we want to continue to wear the masks. We want to continue to adjust to the new safety protocols, with the goal being that it's in all of our best interests to be able to continue the season and keep everybody in good health. The guidelines for practices are really clear. Our coaches have been working over the summer, many of them in different summer programs. They're really familiar with the protocols. So we'll have students in pods of 10 during practices that will stay that way week to week. And we feel like, from the standpoint of day-to-day management, we've got some good safety protocols in place so that we can be successful. Questions or concerns that I can address?
Aaron, I think that was very, very comprehensive. Thank you.
Anybody have
Welcome.
questions, Sarah?
I had a question. I think it was slide 9. It said it was boys golf.
We have girls golf is offered in the spring. We don't have enough interested students to field the girls team. Our boys golf team has traditionally been co-ed. So last year there were 3 girls on the team, one of whom is a Division I golfer. So we
shout out to Gabby.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else?
Yeah. Yes, Aaron, thank you so much. And I know this is an ongoing thing because it's a lot of work and a lot of logistics. I was just, because I know the off-season sports are very eager to get going, and I see the coaching and the season recommendations. This is very unusual, as you know, for coaches to have the capability to have contact with athletes off-season. And I'm sure some of these sports would like to have access to our fields for these activities. Mm-hmm. And how are you managing that?
So our focus really right now is on getting the fall sports underway. Mike and I discussed postponing a decision so that the out of season guidelines, and back up a step, the league approved out of season coaching based on the MIA's waiver of that rule for this school year. Mm-hmm. Up to each building principal to approve the individual school's plan. Mm-hmm. So what I've done thus far is survey our coaches about what they would like to do, what they propose, not a fine-tuned draft, but what they're thinking, and to try to glean some of their concerns. But I've basically told them that they've got to just sit tight for a few more weeks at least, that we want to get the fall season underway, and that maybe by October 1st, we'd have some guidelines for them around out of season coaching contact. My expectation with that you know, the goal around that is really not about providing a competitive edge, but more so giving our coaches an opportunity to interact with those students, some of whom, you know, lost their season in the spring, some of whom this winter we're just not sure about, you know, what's going to be possible. And I think that the spirit of that is really around those relationships, and giving the kids the chance to be together too. We're also, I think, really sensitive and attuned to the fact that we don't want to be pulling kids in different directions. You know, that's something on a very sort of limited basis, that's open to everybody, completely voluntary. You know, I could envision the softball team hitting at the cage, you know, for an hour on a Sunday morning or something like that. Those are the types of activities that we'll be looking at.
Right, because I know that's a tension, a
Yeah.
good one.
Yeah.
And then do you expect, or are you hearing about other extracurricular sports activities? Tennis, that often, don't we run a tennis thing in the fall? It's obviously just a club, or it's not a DCL sport.
Yeah, I'd want to defer a little bit to Mike around the clubs and activities. Just because
Yes.
the final decision's been on those.
Yeah, so can you all hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Great. So tonight we're talking about sports, but, you know, we've been focusing on extracurriculars, you know, in its entirety, and really have said from the outset, we want to do anything we can that we can do safely. And we know a big part of kids being connected to school is extracurriculars. And so we have club offerings for, you know, really almost any students with a varied interests. And even if there's not something we offer, there's a process obviously for them to have a club. I actually met with Student Senate last night, and we talked about how we were going to do the activities fair. They have a great idea. We virtually. So in summary, yes, we are going to try to do extracurriculars. Some lend themselves to a hybrid virtual environment better than others, and some are simply not going to be able to happen. So, you know, the example I gave is, and not to pick on yoga, but, you know, heavy breathing indoors is not likely, but, you know, the outdoor club might be able to operate. So on that, and this isn't really an extracurricular, well, I guess we could call it that to some degree, but even the plays, they have a really good plan for the fall play, which would usually be a musical, and we're going to do one-act plays, which I'm really excited about. So we're going to try to make as many as we can run that can, as long as we can do it safely. One thing we did say is, if there's going to be something after school that's on site that we do need an adult there, it's not going to work well if the mentor is remote.
Good. And then I just have one more question. I find it odd. They said no public restrooms. And I don't quite understand. Obviously, athletes need to use the restroom, most likely.
Well, we've worked it out with the town that the Doug White restrooms are being cleaned twice daily, at 10 in the morning and at 5 in the afternoon. And then we've got a couple of porta potties at the stadium field that we're going to clean daily as well.
Okay, so yeah, because I didn't quite understand. It was an odd thing to state. Yeah. Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I have a question. I don't know if it was mentioned or not. I might have missed it. But what are we doing about student spectators?
They're not going to be allowed.
There are none.
I'm working with the radio station to broadcast some of the games, as many as they can. And we'll also be working to offer remote opportunities, live streams, that type of thing. But it's just it's an unfortunate casualty of the times that we're in that, you know, can't do that this year.
Certainly want to thank everybody for the work that's gone into this, and both here and at the MIAA and the DCL, but specifically here, and the dedication of the coaches to engage with students through this difficult period of time. And you know, as unusual as these activities will be compared to their normal approach, it's probably going to be as close to normalcy as a lot of these kids are going to be able to get, because I don't think the day in, day out is going to be normal. You know, they're going to be in school 2 days a week and remote 3 days a week. And, you know, I think this will be a great benefit to a lot of these kids. I have an amount of reservation about this just because of the close contact. I hope the kids are respectful of that. I'm sure the coaches will do everything they can to ensure that kids are doing everything they're expected to do as far as trying to keep each other safe. And I think that's a great idea to be focused on one school, one opposing school district a week for contact tracing in the event there's any kind of a breakout. So you've got your work cut out for you this season, this year. Let's hope it gets a little better come spring, but thank you for the work you're going to do, and good luck.
Thanks very much.
Aaron, one other question comes to mind. The Wednesday, Saturday for all sports, how does that affect the trainer and how you work that through?
Well, we've done, one of the things we've done is we're moving our trainer's office to a tent outside in the alcove. So it'll be open air going through both ends. And so he'll be stationed there. The number of contests on a given day are not going to be more than what we might have during a regular, quote unquote, regular time per se. On a Saturday, if it works out, you know, the schedule will vary a little bit week to week because each school has different facilities and can host at different times and so forth. But there have been times in the past, and I'll continue to utilize it moving forward, that if we have a number of events going on that can't be covered, we'll add a per diem trainer for the day. And we have a couple of different sort of regular options that we've always utilized.
Excellent. Very reassuring. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Aaron, one more question on those Saturdays. Sorry, we keep thinking of other things. But for METCO students who are participating, is there any thought of transportation to get them out here on a Saturday?
Yes. So Andrew and I spoke today and started yesterday. We took a look at the list of all the students who are registered for the fall. You know, we're in a position where the predominant, football and cheerleading are the two most popular fall sports for our Boston students. We have a handful of Boston students registered for other sports right now. The nice thing is that the number is low enough that we can make individual sort of accommodations, whether it's a carpool situation or if we need to provide transportation. But we're working directly with those families and student athletes to make sure that we've got transportation options covered.
Great, terrific. Thank you for doing that.
Thanks for asking.
I will just comment, coming from someone who's been very conservative in all of this, and from the beginning was really nervous about even talking about sports. Seeing what you've put together, I'm much more confident, and I'm really impressed. So just again, thank you for all the work. But again, from someone who's looking at this conservatively, it's hard to say, wow, sports is a great idea, but you've put it together, and it looks like you have a plan that'll really make it work. So thank you.
Thank you. We're very fortunate that the league has some really solid athletic directors, and I think as a group, you know, we collaborate pretty well, and you know, I'm lucky to be a part of that. So there's definitely a benefit there for us as a school. So thank you.
If I may say one thing, I do appreciate just the you know, the sport that's being expressed. I've talked all along, we're all trying to balance the health of everybody with the mental health of everybody as well. And you know, with nearly 600 athletes they won't participate. We won't have 600 participating because of the sports that aren't running. But if they were, you know, we have nearly 600 athletes in a school of less than, you know, right around 1,300. It's pretty remarkable. And I really feel confident in the plan that was developed. I really commend Aaron and the league for what they've come up with. I did fear that the mental health fallout if A, sports were canceled, and B, the majority of them will go play. So if we don't offer it. And so I feel like we will do it in a manner that's much safer. And that's not passing judgment on anyone else. It's just that there's just more guidelines in the governing body of the MIAA, and I think we can do it in a safer manner than they would perhaps in the club realm.
Anybody else have questions or comments? Okay. Lori, anything else related to athletics you want to mention?
No, I think it's been a great conversation. You've got a good sense of the overview. We know kids are interested. Aaron had opened up registration back, I don't know, a few weeks ago, and we're really on par with the same number of kids starting to express interest. So it seems that the community is very interested in offering. And I agree. I think the league's done a great job. MIAA has done a great job. Use the governor's guidance to get us at least to a fall season that I think we can run safely. And we're just going to have to keep revisiting it as the year goes on. And I expect it's going to be an ongoing discussion, and no one season's going to be a given as we go forward. But it feels good to have a plan we can start with and operate safely. And we did sort of like we did with Concord Rec. We watched some of the coaches had field space this summer and did some work with younger kids, and that was enormously successful. So we're feeling they're in confident hands. And just as the middle school said, it's many of our veteran coaches that we're very, very familiar with and have great confidence in.
So from us, Lori, again, we don't have a formal vote on here tonight, but because we're not all remote, you don't need a formal vote, correct?
Correct.
Can I just ask Aaron how many students are registered for fall sports at this time? I don't need a breakdown or anything.
465.
Wow, okay.
If anything, we're going to be disappointing kids who can't play the sport they registered for, with football and some of the others being delayed. And then one last piece, because I know you'll be asking Jared and I the fiscal piece. The coaches who are in season will get paid. The others will not get paid until their season comes along. So just so we're all clear on how the funding stream will work.
So any coaching contact that they are allowed to do now is completely voluntary?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And we thank those coaches who undertake that, of course.
Yes, very much.
Good. Okay. Mike, are you staying beyond this?
I was planning on it, yes, just to say a few nice words about you.
Good.
So if we could get to that very quick. No, I'm just kidding. Yes, I'm going to stay.
We could get that over with.
Thanks again, everybody. Good night.
Thanks.
Thank you, Aaron. Thank you very much.
Okay, COVID.
Great. Thanks, Wally. Just so you know who's here with us, as you can see, we've got other health officials here. So Deb Green's here. She's chair of the Board of Health and also an ER physician at Emerson. Susan Rask is here as your Concord Health Director, and Tricia McGean is here as your public health nurse. These folks are on my hotline all the time, so we're glad to bring them back to you to offer thoughts and consult. And I just wanted to share the most recent opportunity that's come along for testing so we could have a dialogue about it. Through a connection in another district, a number of us were introduced to JPC Analytics. They are offering saliva pool testing to school districts, faculty, staff, students every other week for the duration of the school year or a time frame of the school district's choice. The cost per person is $200 to $300 per year for the year per person, and the range is dependent on the level of service we use. So if they come in and take care of the entire event, medical staff included, it's on the high end of that range. If we want to own any of the nursing pieces of that or anything like that, it would be on the lower end. They are wide spanning in terms of what the services include, which I've learned as I've talked with these companies. Some do more than others. This includes the software. This includes the reporting. This is easy access for us to get the results. It's a 24 to 48 hour turnaround. I did ask when I spoke to the representative the other day on the phone, how the obligation would work. Are we signing on for the whole year, which to me would be very challenging given how many unknowns. They are offering an opportunity to come aboard for about $50 per person to get you into the first 6 to 8 weeks of school, and then you'd be paying monthly from then on. They are requiring, just simply because for them, they have to project out lab space and materials. So there's a 60-day out clause. So we would have a 2-month obligation before we could pull ourselves back. I know when the superintendents spoke with this company, our first question is, what if we close and go remote? We don't have the same need for testing. So they do need 2 months just to cover costs of their own. I think those are the high level pieces. And I think we're just still trying to see what our options are to see how we might approach it. I mentioned to you that we can work on a school committee policy to mandate testing for students who are planning to be in person in the schools. Working with the staff would be a piece of the bargaining process for any of the union employees. And I guess this is down in the lowest cost range we've had for sure. So I get more intrigued to think on what the options might be. Just in the number of, interactions I'm having with parents, there's a little part of me wondering if at some point here we want to do some just dipsticking to, one, understand their level of interest in all of this, and two, is there any interest in being part of the funding process? And because I think that seems like a question at least worth maybe asking and getting some feedback on. So that's where I'm at. I feel like it's my role to bring you the opportunities as they arise. And this is the most recent one. The others, frankly, haven't come together. The companies, we're in this really odd place. And again, I'll express my frustration that I'm the one talking to companies and not someone at a state level or at a different level that's just setting this up for us. The vendors we're talking to, some of them are just so eager to help. They're getting a little ahead of themselves and offering things that they don't have all the process lined up for, and then it slows down after we express interest. So that's happened at least one other time with one of the other that I mentioned to you. So these folks sound ready to go. I did ask kind of what the turnaround was if we actually were interested. They could get us up and running within a couple of weeks, fairly simply and straightforwardly. Susan, to her credit and expertise, asked for FDA approval information, which we got. They're waiting on one lab to be approved, but everything else already has been. And I think that's where I'm going to leave it, and I'll hand it over to Deb, Tricia, Susan, and all of you to talk on the options and what we're interested or not interested in doing. I guess my last comment, it does feel like the one last thing we haven't figured out, if we're going to look for one more effort to make, I think this is the piece that isn't in place. Is it the surefire piece? I can't say. Is it something we can just do on a dime with the funding issues? Of course not. So that's where we are, and I'll open it up for discussion.
Lori, what's your sense from talking to other school districts? Are some school districts not even going to try to test, or is every school district trying to do some kind of testing? Like what's kind of the baseline out there?
Yeah, we're all talking about it. This has been the theme of the roundtables and conversations I've been on for the last 2 weeks. I don't know of anybody who's got a full plan in place. Some are doing some pre-entry testing of, say, staff, but I haven't found anyone who's got the whole plan synced up yet. But there's lots of us talking about it. So the interest is there. The execution is still coming together.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be, good to test. If we could test regularly, we would know about asymptomatic carriers sooner than later. But I get the cost and just kind of how this would work and how this would happen. I mean, I'm a huge fan of testing. I think we'd be in a different place in this country right now if we had testing back in March and so forth, but I can save my personal opinion for that later. But so I think it would be great to have some capability of testing on a regular basis and see where we are. But I don't know how other parents or administrators or teachers or staff feel about that.
Deb, I wonder if you and Susan could speak to a 2-week cycle. I too am very in favor of trying to find a way, because I think what it can do is reduce outbreaks, or at least mitigate outbreaks. But I'm not entirely impressed with a 2-week cycle as a way to achieve that. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I think the data from Mike Mina, Susan, you saw this too, from the epidemiologist at Harvard, basically showed that you really need to test on a weekly basis in order to catch outbreaks before they happen. So, every other week, I can't remember what sort of percentage we would miss, but, it's not as ideal for sure, but maybe there's an opportunity to test a little bit more in the off weeks if there was a couple of positive cases. I don't know if we could test every week in one school if there were more cases. That that would be interesting to me, but I don't know. Susan, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think it would be great to test every week, but who's going to actually do that? Who can afford to do that?
No one.
So, I mean, I guess I feel like testing every other week gets us a handle on whether we have people walking around who are asymptomatic but have the virus.
Yeah.
I don't know that it would stop an outbreak, but it will at least give us a better sense of that.
When we say testing every 2 weeks, are we testing everybody on the same day every 2 weeks, or are we staggering the testing? So everybody gets tested every 2 weeks, but you have different results coming in, and so you're getting samples more frequently.
Yeah, those logistics really are up to us. The other piece that's up to us, which, because it's a pool test, we have to determine the pools or at least be part of that process. But in terms of logistics on campus and where on campus and where, what day the testing happens to be every other week, that would all be us working with the vendor to set that up.
I have a question. How many people would be in each pool, if you will? How many can be subject to one group?
Less than 20, right, Maureen? I think they're literally set up to 24, but I think it should not be more than 20.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And the first pool testing, Susan, was 4 or 5, wasn't it? And then they expanded from there.
Yeah.
So that makes sense at the elementary level, but how would you determine the groups at the upper levels? And if you determined that group of 20, they all kind of mix and mingle with everyone else, and therefore, is it even useful?
Well, I mean, all data is useful. All data is useful. It gives us answers. We may not like the answers because they're complicated. But, yes, it'll be much easier to find a little pod of kids in the elementary schools. Probably, we'd have to think about how we would create pods of kids in the middle school and high school, and whether it's, one certain class on one certain day, the first class of,
right.
If it's everyone who's in their A block class that's their pod.
Are there also more sensitivities? I mean, just anecdotally, as we've gone through these meetings all summer, it seems like there is, and maybe I'm wrong, greater sensitivities or nerves at the high school and middle school level, and just in terms of a cost procedure, like from a cost perspective, could you as a district say we're only going to test the middle and high school kids, or even just the high school kids, where those are the kids, for example, that have more agency over their lives and can do sort of things outside of their parental bubble or their Or are we thinking about doing this as a district period or not at all?
And also the high school and middle kids are circulating amongst different people in the building, whereas the elementary kids really are cohorted.
Yeah. Right.
So if you had a case, it ought to be contained in an elementary school.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it would be, I would say you probably wouldn't really need to test the elementary school kids as often as the high school kids. I would even say maybe for the 460 athletes at the high school, we test those kids every week. You know what I mean? Like kids who are circulating around in the community, maybe those kids get tested more. I don't know if we can shunt some of the, instead of testing all the elementary kids every other week, if we're paying for, a certain block of tests, can we, push more of it to the older kids that we know are, driving their cars and going to Starbucks and, playing in soccer games. I don't know.
Also, can you just clarify the pool testing? So once you have the pod, if you get a positive, it is not specific to a person, right? It's that pool.
Yeah, you
So
test that
basically, right. So if you get a positive, you take that pool of 20 or whatever it is, and you have to treat them all as positive, correct?
They all have to be retested individually.
Yeah.
Okay. So then there's a retest. Okay, got it. And then with the individual retest, you then figure out your contact tracing based on which one was positive. Okay.
But all of them would have to be out of school until they all got retested, I think.
Right. So at least a few days, probably.
At least a few days.
Yeah. But out of school in this case means remote, which we're doing anyway. So it's not keeping kids out of school. It's just keeping them out of the buildings for a couple days.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Okay, go
Lori,
ahead.
what's on the back of your envelope right now? $1 million?
800,000. 800,000.
Okay.
I love that you knew that I already did that.
How far?
And that's the whole year, right? That's the whole year. So.
But that's the whole year for all staff and students.
Yeah.
Every 2 weeks. Yes.
Lori, isn't that at the $200 number?
That would be at the 200. So fair enough, Wally. If it's closer to the, it's more if you want to get the medical services.
And somehow we have to do what they would charge us to do. So in some sense, there's going to be that extra.
That's true.
Extra cost.
Are we able to collect the samples? I mean, do we have the I don't know what the requirements are for from the nursing level.
Yeah, so I think what they are small little containers with a top, and the literature that Lori sent me, either the person can do it in their home and bring it to school, or bring it to school and have a health professional watch to make sure they're doing it correctly. I don't know what the correct process is. I haven't seen it, but those are the two options in the literature. And my also question for Lori is, so if we get a positive, is that student has to find those 20, so those 20 people in the pod that someone's positive, do they have to seek their own testing, or is this company going to offer the PCR testing?
It's a secondary it's a secondary setting they would need. This company is not offering the PCR test.
And so, so there's still a lot of sites, the Stop the Spread sites, that are free that kids can go and get tested. So, okay.
A question about
This kind of testing is easy to do. Like a kid can wake up in the morning and do this by themselves and come into school with it. It's a lot more user friendly than having, to have sort of a medical professional swab your nose, even though, I think it's a Q-tip. It's pretty easy. But, I think that this is the more user friendly option than, other testing. There's finger prick, there's, blood test, there's the nasopharyngeal swab, there's an anterior nasal swab. So this one's easy, you know what I mean? Like all kids can do this.
And it is a PCR test, Deb.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a good test. The test itself has FDA approval. I don't know if they've got FDA approval to do the pooled test yet.
So the PCR is where they amplify the molecular contents and get a fairly sound reading. Is that not correct?
the most accurate test.
Okay.
Yeah.
So are we at a point where school committee and the medical professionals among us need to look at several of these proposals, Lori, or are only two of them really practical enough to be under consideration, Broad being one and this being another one? Or do we have others that have stayed in the game, so to speak, in terms of contenders for consideration should the resources be available? That
Right.
being, of course, the caveat always.
So certainly, Broad is certainly a viable option. They're ready to roll at any given point. Their price point is $50 per test. So that's the quick version of that, which is the nasal swab. Clearly, JCM is also very active and ready to roll. The third company that I spoke to was a little earlier in the process, is what I think I learned just after that. I'm sure they'll be up and running very soon, and I could reach back out to them. They had been hoping to do the free testing of the staff, and that they found, probably rightfully so, there's a bureaucratic piece of these companies donating tests, so it got a little more complicated than that. I do believe if we were paying for their test, which is another saliva pool test, they were suggesting a smaller sample size of 4 to 5. They were offering it at $80 to start with. They have a federal subsidy coming, though, that they think by October, they'll be down to $30 per test. So of the three, Broad and JCM seem very ready to, with a phone call, we'd be up and going. I think the third option would be a little more investigation to see just how quick their turnaround is. If we were paying, the free piece seems to be on hold for the moment.
Is the price for the analytics company, JCM, is that if you pay the $50 for the first, what was it, 6 weeks? And then the monthly after that, does that still cumulatively end up at 200, or is it only 200 if you sign up on day one for the whole year?
Yeah, no, it cumulatively adds up. So you're between the 200 and 300, depending on how much service you take from them. So
Is part of our analysis now then to quantify how we examine the gap between 200 and 300 with local resources and the practicality of it?
we certainly could do that work, certainly.
So let's get back to the suggestion that you made, Lori, about dipsticking the community. I think there are two relevant questions. One is interest level, although to some extent that could be something that we just decide on our own. This is important for teachers and students and everyone. But the second is willingness to help financially. And I think that's a good question. And whether we're putting it out as a question of would you be able to be willing to pay this much per student, or whether it's just would you be willing to participate in the cost of this. We've had a lot of emails and outreach from parents saying, let us know how we can help to make this doable. And maybe this is one way people could help to make in-person school realistic. Which also leads me to kind of back to the question of bi-weekly versus weekly. If we got, in theory, you never know, such a great response that we had, enough for more per person, could we then use the funds and go to every week, or every week for, a subset that was higher risk, like athletes or something like that? I mean, depending on what we get in terms of financial participation from families, maybe we could even do more. I don't know if that's dreaming and unrealistic, but just want to throw it out there.
I think that's highly practical, and yet I'm uncomfortable with it because I think this should be a health-based decision. That, I think, is the dilemma we're in, Heather. So I agree with you with a big but next to it.
Yeah.
But could you make the decision, and then after the decision is made based on the ethics of it, then you, after the fact, approach the community? Saying, is there anyone who wants to help with this financially?
provided we're ready to honor commitments, we may.
Exactly. We could, but the question is, do we have the money to cover it if the community doesn't step up to do that? That's a big cost that we have not budgeted in.
Mhm. Is it inappropriate to like approach the out like beyond the parent community, like a business community? I'm thinking like the ways PTGs engage with local businesses for sponsorship. Does that get into murky waters?
It's murky, but I know there's other districts doing it. So I guess that's the struggle to have is,
yeah,
it's murky, sure.
Yeah, but we do have some precedent and we do try to be very careful. I would urge us to not predicate anything on fundraising.
Correct.
Doesn't mean we shouldn't do it, but I wouldn't predicate anything on it.
No.
If I don't disagree with that, and I frankly think if we were going to fundraise, we ought to do it through the PTGs or the Ed Fund, but just to keep things anonymous, one step away. But do we have the funds to spend $1.2 million to do this? And I've got other reservations. I think 2 weeks apart is really changes the dynamic of the benefit of this to the point where I have a hard time spending the money. And I'm not, as you know, I'm not the first one to have a concern about spending money, much to many people's chagrin. But I do here. I just think there's a lot of ways to spend money coming up. And doing it on a every 2 week test where, we'll know if kids are asymptomatic because kids around them who catch it and aren't will have COVID between tests. And we're so porous. I mean, we have 4,200 people and they're not all in the building every day, but, over 2 days they are. And that's tens of thousands of contacts daily happening between our students and faculty and their families and their people their families are interacting with when they go to work and the grocery store or whatever. I just, look, I would love to have a way to test that gives us the opportunity to be semi-confident that, we've got a shot at picking up outbreaks. I don't think this is it. I think by the time a decision's made, and my vote won't matter anymore, but I don't see how I could vote for this. And I won't pull back. I think the federal government is woefully fallen down on this. And behind that, the state government is. And I think it's pathetic. And, that we are having these conversations in the United States of America 9 months after we knew about this is absolutely criminal.
So, Lori, what are the next steps? And the other thing I would say is, we talked about this 2 weeks ago and we didn't know about this saliva pool test. In another 2 weeks, I think there's going to be many more options and opportunities. And I think we need to have the community digest this information. And I think we need to get more information around the financials of this.
To that point, Cynthia, Ava had shared something before saying that the state is continuing to support reopening with the weekly dashboard, extended COVID, free PCR testing for asymptomatic people with results in 2 to 3 days, often returned the next day. The program's now been extended to September 30th, and the state has rejected the CDC recommendations to stop testing asymptomatic people, and they'll provide mobile testing units, public health policy, if there's an outbreak in a community, public health policies done by the state. And I just wanted to share that, to your point, that there's stuff mobilizing within our community every day.
I guess I would add to that, there is free testing in the towns that have been designated as yellow, where they're doing Stop the Spread, which anyone can go to, but you know, it's not easy to go to. I mean, it's not that easy to access those tests, but just so everyone's aware of that. I guess the other thing I would say is what I heard from a lot of the teachers is there seems to be a belief out there that there's all kinds of kids circulating in the community who are asymptomatic and potentially infectious. I mean, I know that our numbers are low. We have 2 active cases in Concord right now. One is a high school student, one is a 25-year-old. I think it would alleviate a lot of fear if we could do the first 6 to 8 weeks of testing to sort of get a handle on, do we have a lot of asymptomatic people who are positive, or are our low numbers really low numbers?
Yeah, I mean, I am seeing very little COVID in the emergency department right now, so I would echo what Susan is saying. I do think, you know, I know our from what we're saying, their teachers are nervous. I do think that would help, and you know, maybe we could look to test more of the high-risk students and athletes on a more frequent basis, and that may alleviate concerns of, you know, people being in more porous environments.
I agree. It wouldn't prevent an outbreak. It just would, you know, let's say we test for 6 weeks, you know, 3 samples over 6 weeks, and we don't get anybody positive. And then we say, we're pretty confident that when our community numbers are low, we really don't have this disease circulating. There are not asymptomatic people who are carrying it around. We're pretty confident in that now. I mean, of course that can always change, but it does sort of give us a starting point.
I would also, I don't disagree, Susan, I would also offer up, it has to be met with a vigorous public education campaign, or we're back to what some of you were talking about with us a month ago, which is a clean bill of health for the community can give people a sense of false reassurance.
Yes.
Staying vigilant about our new COVID precautions is hard work. It's hard work for us. It's certainly hard work for adolescents. So that's what I would offer up, is it would have to really be met with a serious public education campaign that's relentless.
What is the sense from the community? Do we know how parents are feeling? Would parents want their kids tested on a regular basis? Like, how do we know how people are feeling about it?
We know how the vocal ones are feeling. So there is a much larger percentage that we don't know. I think that's probably worth saying out loud, because I kind of in my own head wonder if we need to feel that out a little more methodically than we have. Yeah. I certainly get emails all the time from parents that are wondering if we're still working on this, but it's not the majority. It's, you know, the ones taking initiative to ask the questions.
Yeah.
I mean, I would offer up, Deb, a couple of other ideas. One is the more public opinion we gather, the more there's a sense of obligation. So we better stop and ask if we have the resources to honor certain kinds of obligations.
Yeah.
The related question I have next to yours, Deb, which I think is right on, is would frequent testing change the opinion of those parents who have opted for remote only, who are going to avoid school buildings this year? Was that part of their decision-making criteria? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I think there are people who have parents with significant, you know, illnesses, parents with cancer on chemotherapy, and children with diseases that you know, are risk factors. So I bet that those are the reasons that they're going remote. That would be my guess. I would doubt that lack of testing is the reason, but I guess it's worth asking. But
would there be any benefit, and this is really for the public health folks here, of doing an initial system-wide test to get that how do we look against our our symptomatic case data, as Susan mentions, versus asymptomatic. And then monitor the state trends and the Middlesex trends and Concord trends with the eye toward, if we reach certain levels, which in conjunction we could get a kind of a baseline on, and then determine as things rise if they do. Think about finding a way to test every week, which would be more effective in rooting out some of the asymptomatic cases that could result in an outbreak, or even symptomatic, soon to be symptomatic cases. In the event we start to get an uptrend in our area, and then we've got more money to do those things than we do if we just start right out of the gate with this every 2 weeks and spend $1.2 million, versus have the money, see where any grant testing comes along and that kind of stuff, and then just be able to do more testing if things turn for the worse, so that we have a better shot at keeping our buildings open.
I think, a sort of a test before everyone starts back to school is, we had talked about this before. It's kind of tempting to do. I think it's mostly probably reassuring to the teachers and staff. But I think it's also, reassuring to parents too, that look, we're starting with, 0 cases and this is probably the best chance we can to open up. All the colleges, that's what they're doing. They're having students quarantine or have a negative test before they come to college. So I don't think it would be shocking for the community to have that kind of test done before kids get into the classroom. I think that's kind of a standard, I think, that at least the colleges have set.
Do we have a one test option? I know we spoke with your lab at Emerson, Dr. Green.
I think the feeling is that trying to test all the students and staff would really, it's a possibility. We are setting up a drive-through test capability over on Baker Avenue, which will obviously be a lot easier than that tiny parking lot outside our emergency department. So we're working to get that set up. So I think, last time we talked to Dr. Barry Kitch, the Chief Medical Officer, and Eric Stasny, the VP of Operations, it seemed like that might be possible. It would definitely take a few days to run everyone through. It's, there's, only so many people at a day that could do it. But I don't think it would, be something going on, for a longer term. So.
But it would give us, it would be possible with some logistical hurdles to be solved. It would give us that baseline, and importantly, it wouldn't commit us to something above and beyond what we could pull off.
Yeah, I think that the issue is just the cost. You know what I mean? Like when you get a test at Emerson, in that little outpatient thing, the one that I'm talking about on Baker Avenue, or the one that's run outside the emergency department in the old ambulance garage, I think it's about $100 a test. And so basically Emerson sends those tests over to the Broad Institute and splits the cost with them. So, we could certainly, we have sort of the capability and the test site set up, but I don't know, cost effective wise, for a single, point of data in time, it would be twice as much as if people, if we just had the Broad Institute do it. I don't think that they're interested in doing the Broad. I don't think the Broad Institute is interested in testing, you know, everyone in Concord just once, but
No, yeah.
you know, I don't know.
And then to further complicate things, an individual test at Emerson could be billed, could it not?
Say that again, sorry.
If my child were tested at the Emerson new facility, could Emerson not bill insurance? Could they bill insurance?
I don't know. I don't know how it's billed.
All right, we're getting into the weeds.
Yeah, I think different companies are handling that different.
A lot of the insurance companies won't cover it unless you're symptomatic or, you know, you're a close contact and there's reason to think that you could be positive. They won't, it's often not covered if you just want to kind of get it done for your own interest.
Back to JCM for a second. The packaging that we've been talking about from the beginning, Lori, would they give us an option of a one-time at first with then kind of the option to move into more later?
I didn't ask that specifically, but I certainly can.
Okay.
And certainly of the things we've just talked about, and the upfront commitment to them is it $50 or $60?
You know, that's what he said. He also said they were very interested in working with districts based on the individual needs of the district. So I think if we go back and say we're looking at a one-time piece, I think that would be something he'd reevaluate.
Or we could do that first commitment and, you know, I mean, that's cheaper than anything that was just mentioned. Even if we do it every 2 weeks, or maybe they would spread it out and let us do it, I mean, once a month. I don't know. You know, I mean, it's, you go beyond
I got the
a week.
feeling we could go back with any structure we want to propose and they'd be willing to talk, you know, at least consider it. So
I'd love to get numbers on a pool of 4 or 5 in addition to this 20 pool. And because if we can avoid shutting down 20 people at a time, in lieu of shutting down 4 or 5 people at a time, I think there's some benefit that we might want to evaluate.
yeah, I know with the other company that we were talking to, they the cost right now is $80 per test for 4 to 5 people, and that was a family unit recommendation,
right?
That they were suggesting.
I just ask one thing, in regard wherever we end up with the testing, we can't mandate that people do test, right? Or can we?
Because the remote learning is an option, always available, we actually you can create a school committee policy, very much like the face masks, that says in-person learning won't be available if you don't participate, but remote learning will.
Oh, I got out the back of my envelope again, and a one-time test, if you were to negotiate it with the numbers you gave us, with pools of 5, might run us something just shy of $75,000. But anyway, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I think what you're hearing, Lori, correct me if I'm wrong, committee members, is let's pull some more information from JCM. You know, a couple of menu options for us.
And at the same time, do we want to start to think about getting interest levels from the community? Do we want to do even if it's a high level community survey, to dipstick that interest level and willingness to participate financially? I would lean towards it's a good idea to get some information on where people are.
But would it matter if they were interested if we were going to mandate it?
Yeah, I would go
kind of court on this one. Yeah.
I would go as far as saying, we want you to know the school committee is discussing it. We want you to know the school committee is always open to your opinions. I wouldn't get more directive than that. I think it's going to create new problems for us.
And we haven't made any of those decisions. We're just talking about the pricing options, and we just need to get more information before we even have those further discussions about mandated, not mandated.
What we haven't said recently is why we're doing this. If I'm correct, we're doing this to protect the health of the people in those buildings, in the larger interests of protecting the community and keeping school open. Are we on the same page there? That's what this is about.
Yep.
So it's not about parent opinion. It's about your duty and mine to protect those interests around student health, for community health, for the continuance of our reopening.
I mean, it's public health. You know, any child that's an asymptomatic carrier can infect their parents and their coach and their, siblings and their grandparents. And so, data is good. It's good to know this information. Parents may not want to find out that their kid can't play field hockey next week because they're quarantined or whatever. I think there'll be some unhappy parents when they hear things like that, but it's good to know. The more information we have, the safer we can all be. So I hope we can find some way to test and test regularly.
I'll tell you where I am right now. I am here. Let's find a way to get some baseline during this reopening period, even if it takes a couple of weeks to do it. We get some data, to Deb's point, and continue to examine the testing landscape out there with public and private resources to see if new opportunities open up. That's based on what I've learned tonight. That's where I'm comfortable.
I would concur.
Me too.
I'm along the same lines. I guess I would sway my position a little to say ideally I would love to see an initial test done as soon as possible, not just within the first few weeks, but ideally either before, if that's realistic, maybe it's not, or within the first week. I think if we're going to do an initial test, I think we want to do it as soon as possible.
I agree, but I think we've got to be realistic. There's a lot of logistics to work out.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think you're not gonna make next week at this point based on all of the vendors I've spoken to. I think the week after, if we committed quickly, might be an option. So I'll talk more with them tomorrow.
So Lori, we don't meet again until the 15th.
Yeah,
right?
I'm just gonna say that.
Right.
That too far away? Is it that'll work?
I guess it depends.
We could have a meeting next week.
Yeah, I guess that's the question.
So 1 and 2, we can always just need 48 hours to make that decision. So we're obviously not going to know that by tomorrow.
Well, if to do it Tuesday,
yeah,
we would have to post the meeting tomorrow morning because Monday's a holiday.
Right.
No, we'd have to have posted it today, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yep. So the earliest we could do it would be Wednesday.
Yeah.
And we need some more information to even make a good decision.
I mean, I could invite a vendor to a meeting. I've not done that yet because I'm not sure we were ready for that. But I mean, that may be the best way to be efficient at this, is that you have a discussion with a vendor directly.
I'd be very content, happy to do it, Lori, but I'd be very content to have the experts in the room work with you on this. And again, I'm not trying to foist this off on Tricia and Susan and Deborah, but they do hold the expertise here. Sure. And they know what we're about.
Yeah, I think it's but do you need a vote from the school committee to expend the money?
That's true. Yeah.
I think you do.
Yes.
Yes.
If you want that. And we don't know what it would be yet.
So Lori, do you think you would have enough information for us to meet and vote on this next week?
I do. All of these vendors have been very responsive to the best of their ability. I think so.
So were we looking for a number of different options to decide on? Is that what I've been hearing? A one-time test, a all-in kind of a thing? What are we talking about?
I want to be convinced that there can be a one-time baseline with pools of 4 or 5, and that we continue to examine this constantly, because we don't have a year-long option that seems like a way forward tonight.
So, okay, we're asking basically for one option. Are we all agreeing on that? Because I don't want Lori to have to go
We're
off.
asking for one option of a one-time test.
I think we're asking for an option of getting baseline data at the most cost-effective way, which could be the saliva test with the opportunity for multiple tests. They might not be willing to do, one at, $15 a head.
Sure, I understand. So I'm just.
I think it's just come back with what you come back with. But I think your point is right. We want to make sure we've got one test, and we want to do it the most cost-effective way. If that gives us the opportunity for more than one test, then fine.
I mean, I think Broad will come do a one-time test. They've offered me that at $50 per test. We know the other company in Cambridge will come do a one-time saliva pool test for 4 to 5 people each for $80 per test, which is $20 per person. It does come out differently. We don't know what the analytic company will do because we haven't asked that yet about just a one-time option. I don't think Court, and I'll ask them, but I don't think they're going to drop to the 4 to 5 pool test, and I can ask them. But right now, they seem to be at the 20.
I understand. The only reason I mentioned 4 to 5 is because that also is a cost-benefit factor.
Yeah, no, it limits the outcome, the impact, perhaps.
Okay.
Right.
What does the follow-on testing if there is a positive in a pool?
If in the saliva pool there's a positive, then they would go do, and I'll defer to the medical folks, they go to get one of the other nasal swab options. Is that right?
That's correct. Yep.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
Would it be paid for by us, or would it be then on the burden would be on the family?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I don't know.
We can force the burden on the family.
Right, and think about if the burden is on the family at $150 to get this test done, why wouldn't a family be willing to kick in $200 for a whole year of testing?
Yeah.
But you still got, this is an issue about this that we haven't even talked about this pool, about the saliva test. Because if we get, if you get 10 polls, you got 200 kids at 100 and plus a pop to get tested before they can come back to school. I mean, here's the unintended consequences of this. I mean, that's a huge amount of money.
Yeah, it's a huge
We're kind of on the hook for that.
And it goes from being able to take the little swab at home to somebody has to take somebody to a testing facility, be it Emerson, be it Lawrence, one of the.
Yeah.
Would this qualify for this rapid testing thing that the state has set up? If you had a positive pool, would they send out this mobile testing unit that they've talked about?
I don't know, but I can ask. I don't know, but I will ask.
Because I would imagine that's picked up by the state, right? They're not charging for that.
I mean, if you're in a positive pool, you certainly are available to go to the free sites the state has set up. That's certainly an option.
But then,
by definition, you've been exposed because you were in that group because it was a group.
Right.
Yeah.
But you're asking, 20 parents to stop in their tracks and go to Lawrence and spend their day waiting to get a test.
On the other hand, as a parent, wouldn't you rather know that your child had been exposed than not know?
Yeah, but I just can't.
But I hear you.
Can't. That's
Well, they wouldn't necessarily have been exposed because we're cohorting these kids. Well, I guess if they're already in school, I apologize. Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're right, Susan, but can we mandate that?
I understand.
whether or not we can mandate that. And if they don't, suppose if they don't do it, then we could say, you're in the remote learning cohort now. But those are decisions that have to get made around this stuff. It's not as simple as.
Wall's question about would a mobile response be activated by a positive cohort test is a good one.
So my understanding of the mobile testing is the state would come out if you had 2 or more positive cases in one school. So if you had 2 pools in one school where someone's testing positive in that pool, maybe they would, and I will certainly call the EPIs and find out.
Are there and are there any conditions on what kind of tests qualify? What do they accept? Do they only accept individual tests? Do they accept the pooled tests?
I bet they don't know, but I'll ask.
Susan, you're a good sport.
Maybe the second hardest working person in Concord right now, and their superintendent.
I think our superintendent's the hardest working person.
Lori, do you have enough information, or are there too many, have we thrown you too many question marks?
I think I have it. I'm not 100% sure, but I can talk. I mean, he's very responsive. So if I go to JCM, I can have an ongoing dialogue with him. The trick is I can't have an ongoing dialogue easily with all of you because of public
Should
meeting.
one of us
So
kind of designate as a representative on this to coordinate with Lori? Would that help Lori to have?
It might.
One of us to kind of confirm plans with? I'm happy to do it. Court, you seem to have a lot to think you could do it. I mean, I'm flexible on this. Just if it gives Lori someone to work with to confirm what she's bringing back to us next time.
Happy to do it, Lori, if you want.
Okay.
the trick is even one person, I think it's still such a committee-wide discussion that we're just going to be locked into the meeting schedule, I guess.
That's true.
I can see where, I mean, I guess where I would see the benefit is, just being able to bounce this off somebody who's been here. And then if there are questions, I think we just let that person maybe poll the committee.
Yeah, no, we can
be very careful about serial discussions, but poll the committee to get a sense. Is that going to be enough information for you next week to say, go for it, or reservations?
I think I've got enough. I have a sense of what you're asking. So let me talk with him tomorrow. And I think I can lay out what we know from these three vendors at this point. I think there's likely to be other vendors as this continues to move along, just because it's going to, right? But I think I've got the idea. Let me give it a try and put something together that I'll share with Cord after I talk to him.
So let's move to something that I hesitate to ask, and that is, can our health professionals join us next week?
What's the date of the meeting?
We
No, sooner than Wednesday.
If you could join us, we'd love to do the scheduling with you right now.
Yeah, when are you free, Deb, is really the question.
Yeah.
Is a meeting on a Thursday?
Can't be earlier than Wednesday. Thursday gives us another day.
I'm free Thursday afternoon and evening. I'm free Wednesday afternoon and evening. So, well, the 9th or the 10th.
Through the chairs, can we do a week from today, same time?
No.
Fine with me. I could do either one. Wally, we're roping you into another meeting, I think.
I was afraid of that. There's something on my calendar I don't know about, so I just need to check something.
Okay.
Susan, that might work with you. Tricia?
I can do next Thursday at 5. I'm tied up in the afternoon, but I could do 5 or even 4 or later, whatever.
Okay.
So Wally, what we're hearing is if 5 works for you, this might be a go.
I suspect it will. So I think in the interest of moving forward, why don't we say that 5 o'clock on Thursday the 10th.
Okay.
And I think unless anything else
Sure.
comes up that's urgent, we will assume that this is pretty much our only agenda item. We're not having a full meeting with
Yeah,
lots of
no,
other
this will be it.
It is purely to discuss this.
Yeah, because we won't, and there won't be a need for executive session
Right.
after we have one tonight, because we won't have any more information before then. So at least on negotiation stuff.
All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much, everybody. This is
Thanks, everybody.
your troopers to
Thank you for
hang around
joining
here
us
for
for
us.
this.
Yeah, I'll say. Thank you, Susan. Thank you, Tricia. Thank
you.
you, Deborah, very much.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So
Hey. Then we don't have any action items listed. We don't
we have
any-
one item that we have to talk about. There's a PEG Access Advisory Committee meeting at the end of the month. We appoint not a liaison, but somebody to be a member of that committee, a voting member. So is there anybody who, is there one person who would like to do that? Or more? If there are more, we can go out in the schoolyard and talk about it. Or we just pick somebody and let them know that to put you into the mix on meeting planning.
Wally, I'm not vying for the job, but your question, is there a regular meeting schedule for this outfit?
There is, and I want to say it's monthly.
And is there a
It's
particular?
not a heavy lift. I
Do
mean,
they
it's,
rotate night of the week?
no, I think there's a first, it's like I don't remember, but it's,
Okay, no problem.
I think it's a specific, number of Wednesday in the course of the month. It's all off schedule because they didn't meet. They really didn't meet during COVID. I don't even know if we had a meeting. So it's, there is a meeting in September though. But even, it's not like covering FinCom or the select board.
Mhm.
And it's interesting, it's stuff we don't, and they are here in the building. I'm not here, it's my office, but they're at the high school.
Mhm.
I think there is, certainly interest in being more active than we have been able to be recently with.
Well, if you want to get your bases covered, I'll do it pro tem just for one meeting, and then we'll get an official if that gets you by.
Yeah, because I would like to lay out all the options.
Well, and you guys need to do your liaison assignments.
Right, so I just want to.
Gives everybody a better idea. It's just this one's got the meeting coming up, so.
Yeah, and Cord, I can do it as, one of us can do it, assuming the schedules and everything. So if you can't do it, or you would.
Wonderful. Okay.
Yeah, okay.
So Wally, if it's okay with you, we'll get a temporary designee there and let them know that we're going to do our full assignment roster by the time they meet again in October.
Yep. Yeah, sounds good.
Great.
Makes sense.
Thank you.
I think they'd be fine with that.
Okay.
Okay, so we are done with that, right?
Yeah, Wally, what's the next item?
Yeah.
I think, does anybody want to adjourn?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you this. If I don't get to go first, the waiting in line to say thank you is officially over.
Well, Mr. has had his hand raised for a while, so I think he wants.
Well, I've been kicked out
He's tried
twice.
everything. You went to the other side of the fence.
All right. Well, I'll be very brief, if I may. But I wanted to thank Wally personally for you've been a great support, Wally, for the school. I've enjoyed our time together, and you've always been just very gracious. I think we've had a great working relationship. It only blossomed when you commissioned that painting behind you that I made for you. And we certainly don't want to run afoul of any ethics laws. It was less than 50, but Wally, in all sincerity, I mean, this is a really tough job. You've been a professional all the way through, and it's been great to get to know you. And I just really appreciate your professionalism, your hard work, your attention to detail, and just your support for the schools and for the kids. You've been a champion for kids all the way along. You know, so I waited a long time just to say this, Wally, but I mean it sincerely. So I appreciate all the support of the school and for me personally. I wish you nothing but the best and whatever's next.
Thank you. And I want to thank you. You know, there's been a wholesale change in the administration since I came on, and you know, you were here early in that mix, and you know, what you've done at the high school is.
Wally, this isn't about thanking me, sir.
No,
I do appreciate your kind
if
words.
I could do this after the
but-
meeting, I would,
Yeah.
but because of I wanted to say that.
Yeah, well, thank you. I do appreciate that. And I can see that there are far better humans than me with their hands up waiting. But thanks again, Wally. I really do sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Be well.
Well, I'll take over again and not make Wally run this, but there are apparently there are a lot of people who want to say some things here. I know several of us do, and I know some participants do. There's a line of 4 already. So since we've made people wait, maybe those of us sitting here will wait and we'll let others go first this time instead of taking all the glory first. So
Heather, you've also got some Q&A. I want to go through that.
yes, I have one there that I will read definitely.
You may just want to open this up rather than take it off the webinar, if it's possible.
Is that possible? I was going to say either that or you could help me.
Up to you.
Promote people one-on-one, one by one, or?
You just want to pick a name, I'll take them off.
Great. So hand raised. We have Kate Squire first.
Here I am off video.
Hi, Kate. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Wally.
Okay.
I'm Kate Squire. I'm the president of the Concord Teachers Association. And on behalf of the CTA, Wally, I would just like to express our sincere appreciation for your commitment to the Concord Public Schools over the last 6 years. The district that you stepped into was less transparent, less collaborative, and less open-minded than the one that you leave today. This is due in great part to your high level of engagement with teachers, administrators, students, and parents. Your reach has encompassed the entire Boston and Concord communities. You've given and given selflessly of your time and talent to help shape this district into what it is today. I can attest to that fact, given that this is the second meeting you and I have been in together today. We will continue to move forward on a strong and positive path thanks to the foundation that you've helped to craft. But your absence will be felt really deeply by all. So thank you, Wally, for your service and your dedication to this community. Good luck.
Thank you. You guys are phenomenal. Thanks for everything you do. I'll miss you.
The next one, we also have CC Teachers Association. So I'm sure it's Shell there maybe. There we go. Let's see. Someone's coming in. There's Shell. Hi, Shell.
Hi,
Welcome.
everyone. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me all right?
Yes. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you so much. I first want to say thank you to the committee for grappling with such complex and difficult issues and for keeping the well-being of students and staff at the forefront of all your discussions. My name is Shell Hull, and I am the president of the Concord Carlisle Teachers Association. And I want to thank you for this opportunity to thank Wally publicly. Wally, I know you will hear the voice of Eric Pohl in these words. For those of you who don't know him, that's the former CCTA president and current VP. And I hope you know that though these words are coming from me, they're no less heartfelt. On behalf of the educators at the high school, I would like to express our collective appreciation for Wally and for his service to this committee, to the students and families in the communities of Concord, Carlisle, and Boston, and for his work with the faculty of CCHS. During the last 6 years, Wally, you have worked tirelessly on behalf of our communities. You have been instrumental in establishing a vision for a school district whose leadership values and respects both student and teacher voices. Through your work, you have fostered a climate that prioritizes professional collaboration over confrontation. While you are pragmatic and solution-oriented, what really stands out about you is your humanity, your capacity to listen to diverse points of view, and your selfless dedication to public education. I'm certain much of the work of our school committee members goes unrecognized. Wally, there's not sufficient time during my public comments to list all of your important contributions during the last 6 years. However, I can sum up those accomplishments by simply saying you made our school a better place to teach and to learn. On behalf of all the teachers at CCHS, thank you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Well said. Thank you.
It's a pleasure to serve.
You're here.
And thank you.
Thank you, Shel. And our next comment from Joanna Boynton. There she is. Joanna, welcome. We miss you.
This is just so unusual. Anyway, thank you for letting me come on. And of course, I told my kids we would have dinner in about 15 minutes. That was 45 minutes ago. And it's like old times. Here we are.
Never change.
I think they're going to bed and hoping I'd come back. But anyway, yeah, I will say initially just thank you to this group. Wow. I couldn't resist very long not being on a committee for a school, so I've joined my other kids' school committee, and that conversation around testing was all too familiar. So yeah, I'm deep in it, and I just want to say thank you to you because I know of the tremendous amount of time and energy it takes, and what you're doing right now is super unusual. I thought we had it hard. It's just like it's something else. So thank you, Lori. And it was great to see Mike. And anyway, it's nice to see all of you. So I wrote a few remarks because I'm better if I write it down. But it does give me a little warm feeling inside watching you guys do your work. It's just tremendous. But anyway, it's about Wally, and Wally's, it's just such a weird thing. I wish I was in the room with you. But anyway, Wally and I began working together on the school committee over 6 years ago. And when you begin your tenure on the school committee, as you all have now learned all too well, the learning curve is steep, and you're often frustrated with the speed or lack thereof at which you can affect any change. Wally was no different. And in his first months, he was hot to trot to get things accomplished. Our work at times was not always easy. The committee had big issues to confront. Our buses were temporarily located. I hope this doesn't give you PTSD.
I wrote it all down earlier.
Yeah, okay. Our buses were in temporary locations at significant cost to the district, and we were trying mightily to find a location and build a new transportation hub and get citizen support along the way. We had disagreements about installing artificial turf. We had very sensitive and delicate conversations regarding religious holidays, and we had difficult challenges regarding the complex problem of figuring out how to start high school at a later time. We spent hours trying to get awarded an electric bus from the state. We had challenging teacher contracts to settle, along with 8 others along the way. And we spent 2 of those years in a thoughtful, careful, and highly scrutinized and watched superintendent search. And that doesn't even address the massive budget reviews and meetings, as well as working our way through hundreds, if not thousands, of policies to review. Are you still doing that? So, as many of us learned, when you spend as much time in the trenches together, you get to know each other really well. And our start together, Wally and I, it was at times strained as we differed on many topics. And as you can see, the topics were complex, important, and oftentimes charged, but the work was meaningful. And what I learned in that time with working with Wally was that what we shared was an earnest and committed and dedicated passion for doing what we believed was best for students and families and teachers. Wally was tireless in this work. He was always willing to stay late, to volunteer for the extra committee work, and to circle back on topics to be sure we'd gotten it right, or at least to be sure we had considered all aspects of an issue. He listened patiently, and he often called to check in when things were tough. Wally has devoted countless hours to the students of Concord and Carlisle and Boston. And he was always earnest and hardworking and focused in his approach. And really one of the things I love most about working with Wally was his wry sense of humor. He had a way of keeping things in perspective and always allowed for us to appreciate each other and the work we were doing. There's a very strong bond that develops in the work between school committee members, and that was no different for me and for Wally. Wally, I have the utmost respect for your commitment, your devotion, your hard work, your vision, and your ability to work so hard in the interest of others. And I'll miss the calls to check in when things are tough. And I do miss the calls to check in. You will be missed on the committee, and you will undoubtedly enjoy a much-deserved break. But thank you very much for all you've given to this town, these students, their families, and to us and to me as committee members. You will leave big shoes to fill. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And I could say that right back at you.
Well, thanks for letting me come on.
So good to have you here,
Thank you
Joanna.
for
We
coming.
missed you.
Great to see you.
And good luck with your work. I'm watching from afar.
Thank you for joining us. Our next commenter is Sue Richardson. And thank you, Joanna. See you soon.
Toodaloo. I guess I leave. I don't know. Leave the meeting.
Okay, we should have Sue coming up shortly. Let's see. This doesn't work quite the way it does when we're all live, huh?
No,
Let's see. Oh,
there she is.
we're getting there. Sue's coming up. We're getting Joanna back too. Oh, and we lost Sue. In the meantime, while we're waiting, I could do this. I also have a, in addition to our own, I have a comment to read on someone else's behalf. I just want to make sure I don't cut in if she's not here yet. Okay, we're gonna wait while we try to get Sue connected. And in the meantime, another of your former colleagues, Wally, Bob Grom, was planning on being here tonight. Actually, he was here and something came up and he had to leave earlier. So he's left something for me to read. This is from Bob Grom, who we also worked with for a few years. Said, Wally, I really enjoyed working with you. What made it rewarding and productive is the fact that we agreed on most everything. The part that I was most happy about was your availability and willingness to be open-minded. Your commitment and achievements as far as the school committee is concerned are obvious and have been highlighted here tonight many times. What I would like to emphasize is your incredible involvement in many Town of Concord committees. You are a scheduler and achiever par excellence to keep all of your activities and projects in focus. You have a lot to be proud of. All the best to you and Jane and the kids, from Bob Grom. And he promises to be in touch further.
Thank you.
Nice to hear from our former colleagues. And now we have Sue Richardson with us for real.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me back. I told Heather my comments were 45 minutes. I think that's why I got kicked off the call.
Watch out.
I will go as fast as I can. I did write something up to try to be thorough, and I hope it's not too long. Sue Richardson, 260 Elsinore Street, out of habit, acknowledging that. I'm doing a tiny bit of a quick retrospective. Wally hadn't lived in Concord for all that long when he stepped up to run for school committee. So he wasn't really all that well known, and some people may have wondered what moved him to step up into a race that was likely to be challenging and difficult given the previous year's hard-fought, contentious, and very close race for school committee seats. The intensity of 2013 and 2014 school committee races were really a reflection of the state of affairs at the time. Not to rehash it all, but the relationship between a number of parents and citizens and the school committee and administration had become strained. And perhaps more importantly, teacher morale was disturbingly low. So why step up then, a relatively new guy to town, right? Why step up then? Was it for the fame? Was Wally seeking fame? Well, I was one of the people on the campaign committee with him, and I got to know him really well in that process. And he didn't do it for the fame. He stepped up because he is just deeply passionate about education. And that was clear to me at the time in 2014, and it has remained clear. What's also become clear over the last 6+ years is his deep commitment to service. Part of who he is as a person is that deep commitment to service. He absolutely loves bringing his leadership, all of his experience, his deep skill in working with all types of people, his analytical skill and attention to detail that Joanna just pointed out, his commitment to the integrity of the process and willingness to face difficult choices and make decisions and stand by those decisions. And to bring all that to bear in building a school system that works as best as it can. The whole system working together as one. Students, teachers, parents, citizens, school committee, building leadership, central administration. He stepped up, I think, in 2014 because of that commitment that he has to education and that vision for a system that can work really well together. And I think in many ways he stepped up in that moment because Concord was having a tough time. And he wanted to step up and help us through a difficult time to a better possibility. The truth is, since then, I haven't tracked his every vote during these 6+ years because I knew I could trust him to be looking at the whole picture and to put that core of education, the relationship between the educators and the students at the center of his thinking, while still giving the necessary deep consideration to all the crucial pieces that surround that relationship. And looking at those things with reason and integrity. So thank you, Wally, for bringing all that you have to offer to bear on the problems that we faced in 2014 and being an unwavering, tireless agent for change until the state of affairs that was rocky and tenuous got steadied. And then gently, clearly, confidently bringing your thoughtfulness and leadership to everything that we've faced since then. And before I take too much time, I want to speak for one moment about time. 6 years is a long time for anyone to spend on this committee. It is so much work. And I know people do it, but it's really, really, really to be applauded. And it's especially true for anyone who pours themselves into it the way Wally has. Wally, you have been so dedicated and more than generous with your time. And we owe a debt of gratitude for all that you have generously done for us and all of the dedication that you have brought to all of your roles. So thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Thanks for your help getting me into this.
I'm glad you feel that way.
And we all thank you for helping to get him in. Thank you, Sue. It's good to see you again.
Thank you.
All right. I think we've gotten through our raised hands, which means that it's our turn to talk again. I know I would love to say a few words, but I will let anybody else go first. If anybody wants to say a little something, I'll let you jump right in.
Well, I did put a few words in writing, which my colleague knows about, which will be shared with you. Wally, you know, I hear Kate talk, and I think I can't say anything beyond that. The praise is so well deserved and so well expressed. Shelley comes on, and I say the same thing. I can't top that. She just said it for me. And Joanna comes on, and I say the same. And then Sue comes on, and so I'm really sort of in awe of you and have been for a while, but I'm in awe of them for the way they express many of my thoughts. The word that I put in the little bit I wrote up was a word that's very meaningful to me and very meaningful to Sue, and that is the word service. The way I have been able to hold you as a leader for the last 2 years has been an exemplary public servant who does it voluntarily, does it out of a sense of purpose and commitment and love. I've enjoyed greatly your, how do I say this? Your lovely combination of impatience and a thorough understanding of political process. And you don't put those two in the same place very often, but it's something I've enjoyed uniquely about you and your model of leadership for us on this committee and for us in this school district. Other words from Sue that I think really resonate for me, reason. You know that fact-based decisions and the application of logic works. And you insist that we go that way. Integrity was a word only used once tonight, but I think it's profoundly true. And that's not fluff when it comes to how you think and feel and act. I believe you know that that's part of your core. Seems to be you know that. And so I greatly appreciate that. And you have been not only generous with the communities of Boston and Carlisle and Concord, and generous in your support for faculty and students. You've been very generous in your support for us on this committee, and for me on this committee. So for that, I thank you, and you have my deep and lasting gratitude. Thank you, Wally.
Thank you, Court. It's been a pleasure.
I'll just jump in. I don't think there's any, and I know you agree with this, any better recognition you could get than what you heard from the teachers. That's a gift and something you will carry with you for the rest of your life. I think you probably thought the hardest thing you had done up until this time was the superintendent search, maybe. And not that that wasn't an important and difficult and well-run process, which resulted in the selection of Dr. Hunter. But your extra innings, I think, have been the most challenging, I would unfortunately to say, or fortunately to say. So I think we've been lucky that you were able to stay in your leadership role and help guide us through this difficult time. And we'll try to do as good a job in the next coming months. So thank you.
And I have faith that you will. Thank you very much.
Well, I would certainly like to say a few words. Where to begin? You know, Court, you stole what I was going to say because everybody else got on, and I did feel like I can't say it that well. They just said it perfectly. And then you said the same thing.
It's true for both of us.
There we go. It's true for both of us. So the first thing I'll say is everything they said. And then on top of that, I would like to say that since I joined the school committee a little more than 5 years ago, Wally has been so much to me, especially from the beginning. He was a mentor and continues to be. Up until this afternoon, I was asking him for his thoughts and advice on something that he wouldn't even have a vote on here. But he is so level-headed and gives such thoughtful, genuine advice. And I have really appreciated that role that you've played in our relationship over the time. But so much more to me than that also. As Joanna said, in the trenches, you form close bonds, and we have had a lot of fun working together. We've gotten frustrated sometimes working together. But overall, it has been such an amazing experience. One of the other things that I've really appreciated about how we work together is how you challenge me sometimes. And sometimes it's someone who's willing to challenge you and push you to think in a different way or stretch the way you're looking at things that can be the most valuable. And sometimes we end up agreeing and sometimes not. And either way, I really appreciate the way you come at things and the way you discuss things. And when you disagree, it's respectful. And when you agree, it's respectful and maybe humorous. and you keep us laughing. And that's all the kind of off the cuff what I had written a little bit too, and it echoes a little bit of what Sue said in going back 6.5 years almost to when Wally joined. Wally joined the school committees in 2014 with a vision of high performing districts built on trust and transparency and collaboration. And that's really what he dedicated himself to, ensuring that reality throughout the past 6.5 years. I think at a high level, I'd like to say that Wally is a man of both vision and action, which you don't often see in people. He not only envisions the world according to high standards, but he commits himself to efforts to enabling those high standards. Strength and determination are incredible. His strength and determination facing adversity help us all to really maintain our focus on doing what's right. He's committed to the highest of ideals, respectful in disagreement, and genuine in his willingness to hear alternate sides of an issue. His listening skills, as we've heard, are incredible. Wally is led by example, listening to the community and leading discussions in an inclusive and collaborative manner. And we've all really benefited from that. His leadership has been invaluable through the transitions of the past several years. And of course, his humor always keeps us smiling. I did a little bit of a look back, like Joanna too, and started to go through all of the things that you've accomplished over this time, and the list got really long. So I'm gonna run through it really quickly, but the list of things that you accomplished and worked on, Wally, is in your time. You're instrumental in hiring Dr. Hunter for us, an incredible leader for our districts, someone who fits what we were all looking for, contributed to the district-wide strategic plan, helped to strengthen our school committee relationships with our teacher unions as evidenced, negotiated so many contracts, and more importantly, in a mutually respectful and collaborative process. Built and strengthened relationships with other town entities and officials also. Opened doors and listened attentively to teachers, to parents, to any community members who wanted to share thoughts or concerns. And supported so many initiatives, the campus improvements, moving into a new school, curriculum improvements, budget process improvements, the bus depot process, calendar reviews, later start times, student equity, the CMS building project. I mean, the list of the initiatives and projects that you've worked on just goes on and on. Most importantly, you've represented the best interests of students and teachers in everything you did. And that makes all the difference in the world. Not to mention chairing either the Concord or the regional school committee for, I think, a combined time of more than half your tenure, if I'm correct, or at least half. And obviously stayed beyond your original term dates to help lead us through this. So Wally, to say you will be missed is an understatement. I will miss you every day that I'm doing this work. You've been a leader that we look to and trust and rely on, and it will be all up to all of us to step up even further in your absence. So thank you for the energy and time and dedication and commitment that you have given us and our whole community for the past 6.5 years. We will miss you.
Thank you, Heather. Likewise. Thank you.
Do I get the last word?
Absolutely.
So that I didn't prepare anything, because when would I do that? I don't sleep anyway. So, but I mean, I go back, I was in the middle school today, Justin and I walking around Sanborn, and I actually ended up telling the story of you driving me there on my interview visit to Concord. And this whole committee, and Wally just stands out as a front leader among the whole process. Nobody was giving up to me what was actually going on here and the challenges that I was going to find. To your credit, or whatever, I guess it wasn't something you all just named. And but we drove into the middle school. I remember looking at Wally and going, "You need a new middle school," and I hadn't even been in the building yet. And it wasn't that long after it was April after I was hired. There was a difficult decision to be made, and Wally was part of that. And right off the bat, we didn't agree, and I took a risk, big risk, frankly, to say what I thought. And Wally always listens, always listens. And I always feel heard. And we often will start at different places, but end up at the middle. And I just know that that's made me better for Concord because of it. You know, while you say you have work and jobs and stuff, but I can't really figure out when you're doing them because you're constantly working for the school committee. This is a committee, as some of you know, new folks are realizing, or will soon, that is so active, and there's a pace to this that I've never seen before. And whether it's the subcommittee work or it's the, well, you can see we can't figure out how to go without a meeting a week right now, you know, and that's not all that atypical, frankly. There's just this constant flow of work that goes on, and Wally's always been part of all of that, always willing to be part of all the extras and the committee work that goes on in between and the projects. And then, you know, there is this level of need of a superintendent that the school committee remembers as like a human being here trying to do all this for you. And while you were just always able to see that, and probably one of the most frequent people to say, how are you? And that makes a huge difference to know that somebody's kind of watching a little. Maybe can't fix it all, because goodness knows. We just have hopped from thing to thing to thing without a stretch, thinking we were going to get level playing field, only now to probably be in the most chaos we could never have imagined, right? Divine intervention that you stayed these extra months. I didn't realize that was happening. It's funny, in March, it was such a fog. And then as town meeting got postponed, I was probably the last one to realize that was going to mean you were on through the fall. But boy, when that moment happened, I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that means Wally's here until we are in a little better place, or at least have done this a little while. So I don't know, I can't say enough. You've been a rock, certainly in my tenure of coming on board, and one layer at a time, finding all of the challenges that everybody's talked about and trying to navigate them. I know I benefited from the relationships you had built, starting with the teachers. They somewhat gave me the ability to use that trust and run, see what I could do with it. So I'm grateful for that. I think tonight, that's all them. They told me they were going to do it and just made sure I could help them know when. So yeah, long, deep changes here. And I think there's a lot more that will come from them. That's the legacy, which is I think what we're all hoping for, is we leave a difference, and it's better than when we got there. There's no question. And I will never know just how much better, because I am only on this side of it, but knowing what I walked into and where we are now, there's just no doubt. So thank you. Your commitment's just extraordinary, and we're all grateful.
Thank you. Your comments mean a tremendous amount. The hour's late, but I do want to say a couple of things. I mean, this has been humbling to listen to everybody. And I thought about, it was interesting. Joanna hit most of the points that we've been through in the last 6.5 years. And but I counted up, I've had 18 school committee colleagues, because we've had some turnover, and which has created its own issues. I mean, there is something to be said for being here for a while. And I oftentimes think, Jane, cover your ears, that, our tradition of 2 terms in Concord, while, very solid and long standing, for school committee might be better to be 3, just because it's so complex. And I had the benefit of some time working with schools when I was in Needham. And for a long time, my administrator inspiration was Dan Gutekanst, who was a long-standing superintendent over there. And he and I arrived in Needham the same year. It was the year we put our son into kindergarten. And he's a 13-year student of the Needham system. And he inspired me to get into some fur flying wrangles over there that, were just, a lot of passion. And I learned how much this public school thing means to kids and parents, teachers. It's quite a soup that we create here. And then I got here, and I came because I met Jane, and Jane had 2 kids in the system, and early in my time here, I met Cynthia, who was running for school committee with Lisa Bergen, and we saw eye to eye on a lot of things, and then the next year, some folks were looking for somebody to run, and the next thing I know, they're talking about me doing it, and I was, like, come on, your great-grandparents have to have been born here to be a Concordian, and I've been here for about 3 weeks. I'd registered to vote in September, and was considering running in November. I had 36 coffees, I think, to Sue's point about nobody knew me. And I hope nobody has to do that again, but just because I'm kind of nuts, I enjoyed every one of them, even the ones that were contentious. And I ended up on the committee, and it's been one of the great things of my life, and I think always will be. I do care deeply about public education. I was a bond trader, municipal bond trader in my 20s in Boston, so I knew about Concord and CCHS. And it's, you either went to Wellesley for the schools or you went to Concord for the schools back then, depending on how you wanted your commute to look. And it was a special place. And I didn't live in Concord. I lived South Shore, Boston, West. But, when I got here and I went to some school committee meetings with Jane, fancy date, and I saw the teachers, and I was driven to try to help if I could. And then I ended up on the committee, and, Joanna talked about, there were a lot of issues that we had a lot of differing opinions on among committee members. And, but everybody cared about kids and cared about Concord and Carlisle and our Boston students. And, we found a way to get to decisions that worked for those people, which is the only reason we're here. It's about the student and the teacher first, and then the parent. And everything else is in support of those relationships. And I believe that deeply. And I think most of you believe that deeply, all of you really. And I know that the districts are in great shape and great hands. It's time for me to go. There's different challenges ahead, and others will pick up that gauntlet. And we're so fortunate to have found Lori. We took a chance. We were looking for a seasoned superintendent, and Lori had not been a superintendent, except I argued vociferously that her first principal job was basically being a superintendent. And so we took the chance, and I think we were all immensely happy that we did that. And, you know, there's not an administrator in a building who hasn't changed since I came on, and other than Beth. You know, and only two of those people were here before Lori arrived. That is a massive amount of work just to bring those people on board as a superintendent. And I look around at the people that are working here, and I've said it many, many times, and I will say it again. We have a team of superstars. And it's not just the administration, it's, you know, we have faculty members that, you know, are just off the charts. And they help all the other faculty members around them be better and learn. And right now, in the midst of this COVID mess, that even with the concerns they have, that the teachers are coming back to the building unless they've got health issues. And Lori and her team have helped them find a way to still teach our kids in the way, you know, and our kids are better for it. I mean, you look at just what's going on here in the state around getting back to school. I hope people understand how fortunate we are and how important to our kids those teachers are. You know, I've done a lot of things. I hope to do a lot more things. But what we've accomplished here in the last 6+ years is extraordinary. And, you know, everybody's important that I worked with, and none of this I did alone. I know I've got a lot of accolades tonight, but, you know, these were all team efforts. And I do want to thank specifically Joanna, who, you know, we, you know, just the relationship that we had that developed over time and was, you know, dynamic and you know, how we worked together. It really was a real transition over time. And Heather, you know, you came on a year after I did with Dan. And in some ways it felt like the cavalry had arrived. And the, you know, and that was a big turning point. And unfortunately, Dan left us, but, you know, for obvious reasons. I mean, he was at school 24/7. You know, his great contribution. Court, the last couple of years have been great to work with you. And we did a lot before that, when you were still employed by the district. And then I want to give recognition to Phil Benacasa, who was on the committee when I came on. And, you know, he served the last year of a 3-year term and chose not to run again. But, you know, this district is a better place because of Phil, and God rest his soul. You know, Lori, I don't know that I'd have lasted 6 years if you hadn't shown up. So, you know, we've had some tough times. You know, there's been a lot, and there's been a lot of things nobody knew about that we
me least of all, but anyway.
And there's one other guy I want to mention, Bill Fink.
Yeah.
Bill Fink served two stints with us here from Carlisle. And, you know, Bill and I didn't see eye to eye. He came on for his first year my first year, we were loggerheads a fair amount. But he and I were chairs when we were going through the superintendent search. And, I have the utmost respect for Bill, and it was an amazing time. The transition that started with that process has been amazing, and so we all deserve credit for that. People are on here now, and the people who've been on here, and so I could go on forever. I'll miss this. I know I will. I love the work, and but I know you guys are going to do a great job, and I know that the best years of Concord Carlisle are ahead of it. I hope that as things have improved here, and I know that they will continue to improve, that school district that I knew back when I was a cub working in Boston is back, and that it's not just about our kids and Concord and Carlisle, that it's about what this district does and what this district is capable of, helping other districts that are less fortunate. Because that's what it was. And we've seen it some again in the last 3 or 4 years. And it can be that again, and God knows we need it. And I think we have a responsibility to those who much is given, much is owed. And, that is very true of the people who work here, and the people who study here, and the people who watch their kids grow here. So I look forward to watching what's ahead. Thank you.
Thanks, Wally. Don't be a stranger. Come visit us here and there.
I will.
Do our best. Anytime, I think we're bringing you back next Thursday.
Yeah.
We're not
gonna do
really
this.
done with you yet.
So can we have a motion to adjourn?
Yeah. Actually, I think we need a motion to go into executive
Oh
session.
yeah, I can't. Why did I never remember?
Why don't I do that?
Just-
Wally and I are looking for a motion that the Concord School Committee and Concord Carlisle Regional School Committee will enter into executive session under Purpose 2 of the Open Meeting Law to conduct strategy sessions in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel, or to conduct collective bargaining sessions or contract negotiations with non-union personnel, and Purpose 3 of the Open Meeting Law to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and not return to open session.
So moved for both.
Terrific.
Second for both.
Terrific. Any discussion?
I need to add one thing, or my life will never be the same. The sacrifices that my family made for this work were extraordinary. And for my wife, Jane, I thank her for getting me into this, and I thank her for making me get out.
So do we.
The latter part.
The first part.
And she's gone, so somebody will have to tell her I said that.
We will tell her, and we thank her and the girls and your son, your entire family, even the dogs, for letting us have you for all of the hours that you've given to us.
Thanks.
Yeah.
So roll call.
Okay.
Booth,
Aye for both.
Rainey.
Oh, you're muted.
She's getting there.
I was ready to switch over. Aye for both.
Okay.
Out.
Aye for both.
Wilson,
Aye for region.
Johnston, aye for both. See ya in a couple of minutes.
Wally, we'll see you in a few minutes.
Thanks.